Your girlfriend is driving you to go kill your uncle that has molested you all those years.
I need to kill this motherfucker. I remember walking in the house. I'm an 18-year-old kid. I make my way back to his room, and I looked him in his eyes. I said, I'm the kid you used to molest. And I beat this motherfucker unmercifully. Now I'm going to watch his world crumble. No. And I dragged him. He's laying there gurgling blood, and I picked his head up by my hands. And I said, I'll kill you, and you will die by my motherfucking hands. Do you hear me?
Whoa. All right, dude. TJ.
Yes, sir.
I'm excited for this episode for many reasons. One of our biggest listeners reached out and was like, bro, you got to get this guy on. He's a neighbor of mine. You've got to hear his stories. And so I reached out, and you have quite the life you have lived. From your childhood, you dealt with a lot of abuse as a child,
Yeah.
which led to you almost taking your life as a very young kid.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to get into that. I also want to touch on, you were in the World Trade Centers when it was struck by a plane, and you got to see a lot of what happened that day, and it changed your views on a lot of things ever since. But in between that time, you've been in several bands, you've been traveling, and I know you got a lot of stories of everything and in between.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you today for coming on. We're going to send you home with a fresh loaf of sourdough. The girls got it baked up just fresh. It's probably still warm for you waiting downstairs.
Sounds miserable.
We started a little company, a little thing for homeschooling when we pulled our kids out a few years ago, and it's kind of evolved into something now, and so it's doing really well, and the girls get to learn
I want information on that.
Business and entrepreneurship and everything that goes on with running a business. So we're kind of teaching them that as a homeschool project. And I want to make sure I send you home with some Wild Chaos swag. So, dude, as always, we just jump right into this, man. I want to have this conversation. I'm really excited about it because there's so many different things that have gone on in your life and have set probably the trajectory for it. And you've overcome a lot, I could only imagine, in your years on this amazing planet. So, who are you? Where are you from, man?
My name's TJ Frost, and I'm from Buffalo, New York. That's where most of my family had been. We moved quite a bit. My father was in the military. He was in the Army as a mechanic. So we did, I've lived in probably 9-10 different states,
Oh, okay.
I was in 9 different grade schools by the time I graduated 8th grade.
Okay.
So seen a lot as a kid, but I was raised by people that probably shouldn't have been parents.
You're speaking of your own parents?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, I think that there's a narrative that people have. There's this Cosby kind of thing that people want, right? They want to think that their parents are the best example of how to be.
For sure.
But unfortunately, sometimes your parents are the best example of how not to be.
Absolutely.
And you have to, there's a reckoning that you have to have with that, right? And so I dealt with a lot of child abuse, in my life, neglect, torture, and physical abuse, sexual abuse.
Who was this coming from?
Uncles, yeah, uncles that were protected by their moms, grandparents.
Okay.
And then by their friends, the uncle's friends also would be sexually abusing, torturing, us as kids too. So
who's us?
My siblings,
okay,
and cousins. Okay. I mean, it was through the whole family.
Really,
it was. Yeah, it was pretty pervasive, and so for me, I was the oldest of 5, right, and so I think my abuse started when I was probably, from what I can tell, memories being what they are, probably like 4 years old, 5 years old, and by the time I was 5 or 6, I'd seriously contemplated taking my own life, committing suicide, and climbing a tree in the backyard and tying a rope around the tree. And, thankfully a neighbor came out and seen what was happening and got me out of the tree.
At 5 or 6 years old?
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, what was the sexual abuse? I mean, you said torture, neglect. I mean, are you just
being burned with cigarettes, constantly, sexual abuse? I don't want to get graphic about it, but things that you don't do to children, right? I mean, pedophilia shit, and not having a safe harbor, right? Like I said, it was coming from uncles, but it was also coming from the uncle's friends, girlfriends, different things like that. I remember one thing, and not to be so graphic, and I apologize to your family if they're hearing this, but I think I was about 4 years old, maybe 5, and I remember my uncle and his girlfriend. We lived above these people, and my uncle was supposed to be watching us, and he took me and her sister, who was probably, I would guess, around the same age, and put us on the bathroom floor and made us do, fellatio and cunnilingus on each other, at 4-year-old kids, So, and this is a uncle and his girlfriend doing this, So, this stuff went on for a long time, and it took I would say that it takes a lifetime to get to a place where you can manage that kind of thing, when you can, and I say manage it, not in like, oh, I've healed from this.
Mm-hmm.
Because a rape victim is always a rape victim. That never goes away.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you ever heal from those things?
But you have to heal, you have to understand that, the world is a sick place. But to learn that as a child, when you have no protection, right? Parents aren't protecting you. Any adult in your orbit is not protecting you. No one's doing anything. And it's, as I said, it was pervasive. So, you have to, I've gone to a lot of therapy, a lot of counseling, pay attention to a lot of psychology and different stuff like that, philosophy, to get to a place to find a way to put it in a more useful place than have it be something that eats you alive.
Absolutely.
And so
that's not easy to do. And a lot of people probably never have the means or the ability to figure out how to get to that point, and they just suffer with it until they eventually either take their own life, go down to the bottle, the pill, whatever their path is to try to ease the pain on being abused as a child. That's not an easy thing.
I think that I've always said I'm fortunate because I had good support around me, even though I was a street kid. I've been on my own, as a young teenager, eating out of the garbage to living in a car, but I was fortunate because I had support of like good friends. I had a good friend of mine. His mom I'd crash on her couch from, frequently. And she was like a second mom, even though she was a junkie,
Okay. How did you end up on the streets as a kid, living in cars?
I think that you get to a point, for me, I just got to a point that I was better off away from these people than with these people.
For sure.
And I did everything I could to not be around them, because when I'd have to be around them, there was this, you were like compelled to pretend that everything's fine. And being compelled to do something against your will can last for so long, I guess. But if you have any kind of, I guess for me, like, I just don't have that spirit to be broken in me like that, Yep. And I think about the movie, if you ever seen it, Instinct, with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Anthony Hopkins.
I don't know.
Well, there's a great scene in there. It's worth watching, where Anthony Hopkins, he's some paleontologist or something like that, and he studies gorillas in Africa. And long story short, he's winds up living with this gorilla family in Africa, and there's these poachers, and they kill they wind up killing the gorilla. Spoiler alert, is silverback like the guy. And it took him all this time to gain the trust of this gorilla, and he was part of this family. And then these poachers come and they kill this gorilla, and he winds up as a murderer, and he takes, he doesn't speak to anyone. Some time passes, and Cuba Gooding's like this up and coming hot shit psychologist or whatever, and he's going to be the guy to go and break, Anthony Hopkins, who's he's a genius level intellect kind of guy. And so, long story short, they underarm guard, they take Anthony Hopkins to the zoo, and they take him back to the gorilla cages, and all these guys got their weapons on them and that, and Anthony Hopkins picks the lock on the gorilla cage, and he opens the door, and they're all like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And the guns are drawn, and he goes, "He won't come out of there." He's like, "Freedom is a dream he's forgotten." He's like, "This isn't a gorilla anymore. Mm-hmm. This is something different," and I think I look around sometimes and I see that in people, that they gave up early in their life on who they are and what they are supposed to be or could be. Yep. I have 2 young kids, and I'm a firm believer in that we are living gods walking this planet, and that if you so choose to push your energy in a direction, that you can manipulate matter and genetically modify things and go to space. But it requires an effort that, in these stories that we used to read in ancient scripts, of these people did, And so I think that I've held that my whole life, that there's something important about us being here that matters. Mm-hmm. And even though, we might get the grace of, having 80 summers on this rock, you don't live until you wake up to the reality that you've already cashed in 30 of those summers sometimes, or 40 or 50, and maybe you only got 20 summers left, and that ain't a lot of time. And so I've seen, child abuse and different things like that destroyed friends of mine, taking their life away. Guys that were way more talented than me, funny, great guys, and it wrecked them and destroyed them, And so that's kind of what led me to my musical career or whatever. Not that I've ever made really any significant money from it, but I've been playing music since I was about 18 years old. 53 now.
Was that your out, do you feel? Was that a huge coping mechanism for you, was music?
Absolutely. I remember the day. I remember it too, like it seared in my mind for the rest of my life. I was in 8th grade, and I was in an English class, and I was a student that I did well if all I had to do was make a little effort, and I could do well. I tested well. Yeah. I never did homework, but always on the honor roll kind of.
One
guy,
of those. Okay, I was the complete opposite. Yeah,
it's all right, man. Testing isn't everything, but so he gave us an assignment. Mr. Carmody, I think the guy's name was. I have no idea how I remember that, but and the assignment was to do some essay on some whatever topic that I think you were able to choose yourself, and so, like I said, I never did homework, So the day comes, and he says you can either turn in a report or you can do a presentation, verbally in front of the class. I had never thought about speaking in front of somebody. I'm 14, I'm a fucking basket case. I just, the year before I just stopped pissing the bed,
Okay.
So, I mean? It's like, I had a lot of really trouble things. Most of my life, I was concerned that I was destined to be a serial killer because of my childhood and these things that I had going on in my life where I'm like, somebody put this in me though. I'm not this guy. Right. Yeah. So you're fighting this duality. And so he comes and he calls on me. He's like, "Yeah, did you do the report?" And I was like, nah, I didn't do that. And he's like, "Do you want to do a presentation?" I said, "Sure." I hadn't prepared anything. And I was a huge music lover already at that point. Music, metal and hard rock and punk and, any of that stuff. And so I said, sure. And I got up in front of the class. Now, I had always kind of been a loner guy. You know, I mean, I had some buddies and shit. We'd listen to music, whatever, you know, drink, you know, party or whatever. But it was not like, I wasn't like the popular kid in school, you know. I was fucking big dude, long hair, you know, dirtbag metal kid, you know. And so I stood up in front of the class and I said, I'm gonna do my report on suicide and the song Fade to Black by Metallica.
Okay.
And so I started reciting some of the lyrics to them. And like I said, I hadn't prepared anything. I didn't know what I was saying, what I was doing, what was happening. I just went with it. And I started talking, and I realized in that moment that my whole life I hadn't had a voice, right? My whole childhood, you know, there was no one to cry to.
Yeah.
There was no one to talk to. There was no one to go to and say, hey, I'm being hurt here, and they're hurting your family, and all these things it didn't exist, right? It's like another world, right?
Yeah.
You know? And so, and I realized in that moment when I was giving this oral presentation that the whole class was fixated on me, you know? And I may have had tears in my eyes, I can't remember. But I just remember the whole class was crying. You know, I told them, you know, first time thought about taking my life, I was 5 years old, you know, in the backyard with a rope around my neck in a tree, you know, and what this song, this music that I didn't know these guys, you know, I didn't, and, but the lyrics of that song were so powerful that it was like a mantra for me to know that I'm not alone. Like somebody else, somebody in that band, whoever wrote that song, those lyrics
Feels what I'm feeling.
We are deeply connected in some profound way that I didn't understand at 14 years old. But I finished the presentation, and as I said, like, I mean, girls in the class crying, guys in the class crying, like people coming up to me, like, oh my God, I had no idea. It's like, and it wasn't a sympathy thing or anything. It was just like, hey, I'm telling you how I feel right now. Yeah. And this is the thing. And that was a real like click moment for me, that your words have power. That you choose your words correctly and you're casting spells, right? You can help people. And that's been my motivation musically my whole career, is to help myself, right? Because it's cathartic and, you know, it's also painful. You know, you go back and reopen wounds all the time, because every song I write, it's like I'm writing the last song I might ever write. And so I got to make sure I put everything in there that I can.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
And so, but the drive was always to help people, because I understood early on that being able to talk to somebody was a powerful thing.
Absolutely.
Right. And if you can get people to talk, that's a powerful thing for them too. Right. So, so that really like drove me to start pushing towards the idea of like, my lyrics, how can I help people? If I can drop a couple, not that I had my life sorted out, not that I was doing great, not that I wasn't a fucking psycho basket case at times in my life and fucking, you know, like wanting to be dead, you know what I mean?
For sure.
Just not wanting to be alive so much that it's like, man, can this please end somehow, you know? And not realizing that through that fight of not giving up and not giving into it, and really just hoping to reach out and look, here's a little breadcrumb for you. Try this thing, or think about it in this way. It's powerful when you have people come up to you and say, you saved my life. Thank you for writing that song. You know, that's a world shaking thing. Like, fuck, there's one person. Thank you. There's one person, you know, cause it's like a pay it forward thing. I wouldn't exist if it weren't for the people in my life that loved and cared about me, my friends, and, you know, these people that, and when I was the weakest in my life, you know, they were strong for me, you know? And so, but it's also an uncomfortable place to be in when you've been neglected your whole life and you don't, your whole worldview has been corrupted and perverted. You don't know who to trust. You don't know how to love. I mean, there was a time in my life I didn't think I could ever love a person. That just wasn't a thing. And it was until I was an older teenager, I was like, it just ain't a thing. Like, I never will be able to love someone.
Because with that much abuse, it slowly just chips at who you are internally and then it just starts turning off things. So empathy, feelings, love. I mean, I feel like that just kills you inside over time. So then that took you a while to get all that, start getting that back. And was that through music or just time of talking to people or just maturing, being out of that situation?
You know, it took a real long time. I'm not going to lie. Something really significant happened when I was 18. I think it was 18, 19 years old. I met a girl who, well, like I said, I didn't think I could ever love somebody. You know, that just was like I guess you're just a person that can't love, you know? Yeah. And I met this girl at a party and we chatted a little bit. It was nothing, you know, but I just remember leaving there and I was like, I just never felt anything like I felt talking to this person. And so didn't get her name. Like I didn't know if it was one thing or another, you know? And so I'd never seen her before. Didn't know if I ever see her again. And I was dating a girl at the time and I was like, I went home that night and I broke up with her. And she's like,
okay.
She's like, why? And everything was good with her, you know? But I was like, I can't be with you. And she's like, is there someone else? I was like, I don't think so. But I just knew that what I felt with this stranger, I had never felt before.
Okay.
And it was powerful. And so.
Did you ever meet this girl again?
A week later, we ran into each other at like a White Zombie and Korn show or something like that. And we exchanged numbers and we started dating. And so we dated for a while. She's an amazing person, very sweet and all that stuff. But I was a very broken person.
Okay.
You know, I'd say my suicidal ideation was really ramped up at this point, you know.
How many times, because you've dropped suicide several times, how often or how many attempts did you take? I mean, you said at the age of 5 was the first attempt or serious action of taking your own life. Was it a reoccurring thing? Was it just here and there? Did it peak and then you would be good for a while? What was the ebbs and flows of these suicidal thoughts? Because it seems to be it was a huge part of your life during that era.
Yeah. Well, how many times? I mean, I remember waking up in a bathtub with a straight razor, like coming out of like a psychosis, thinking like I wanted to slash my wrist. So I climbed in the bathtub so I wouldn't get blood everywhere. It was something that never left me.
Okay.
It was a daily thing of just not wanting to be here anymore, not wanting to be alive. And I, as things would be fine, like, okay, fine, maybe, you know, and then maybe something was happening and all of a sudden it's like, I just can't anymore. Like, okay. There's just no point to this thing. Okay. So it was something that never left, right? It was just something that was like a constant toothache that you just couldn't get rid of, you know? Yeah. And so I remember coming home one day and I'm curled up in a fetal position on our bed. And my girlfriend, she comes home and she lays down next to me and she goes, you got to do something. You got to do something about this. This is going to kill you, you know, because I know that she would come home day to day wondering if I was going to be swinging from the rafters or have my brains blown out all over the place, okay. You know. And she said, you got to do something. You're going to die. You're going to kill yourself. It's something like only bad is coming from this.
Yeah.
And she said, what can I do to help you? And I remember at that moment, Bam, that was the first time I had ever heard anyone ask me how they could help me.
And you were 18, 19 at this point?
Yeah.
Damn.
And I said, I need to kill this motherfucker. That's what I need to do. It's the only thing that will help me. And so she said, let's go. And I grabbed my baseball bat. She took me by the hand and walked me down to the car. And she drove me to my grandmother's house where my parents were living.
You're talking kill your uncle?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay, I thought you were talking the demon like inside of you that you're battling.
No.
Okay, so your girlfriend is driving you to go kill your uncle that has molested you all those years.
And my siblings and all this damage that has been done, you know.
Okay.
And so she drives me there. We don't talk the whole drive. And I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to do. Because again, remember, like anytime I had to be around these people, I would just pretend like everything was fine.
For sure. And now you're confronting this.
Yeah. And so I remember walking in the house. My grandmother's there. My mother was downstairs. Couple of kids are running around, my siblings and that. And I remember just walking in, and I left a baseball bat on the porch. And I walked in, and I said, "Where's Voldemort?" We'll say, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, he's upstairs." So I walk upstairs. I make my way back to his room. And I remember knocking on his door. He goes, "Yeah, who is it?" I said, "It's me." I didn't know what I was going to say to this guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's several years older than me. I'm an 18-year-old kid, you know. And I said, "It's me." He goes, "Yeah." And I opened the door, and I looked him in his eyes. He was on the other side of his bed folding laundry. And I looked him in his eyes. I said, "Do you remember me?" And he said, "Yeah, what do you mean? You're my nephew." I said, "I'm the kid you used to molest." And I beat this motherfucker unmercifully. Unmercifully. No. And I dragged him lifeless by his hair. And I kicked my father's bedroom door off the hinges. And I threw his half-brother down next to his bed. And my father sat there reading a book. And he said, "What's going on?" And I tell him, "This motherfucker's been molesting me and your kids and all this other shit that he's done." And I said, "Now I'm going to watch his world crumble. He's no longer protected by you motherfuckers." And I said, "He will die by my hands if I ever fucking see him again." And he's laying there gurgling blood, motionless, you know, whatever. And I picked his head up by my hands. And I said, "I'll fucking kill you next time I see you. If I ever see you again, you will die by my motherfucking hands. Do you hear me?" And then he vanished. They moved him out into the country or something. But at least he was away from my family, you know.
Oh, I mean, good for you.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. Did your parents know what was going on all those years? Or did they just turn a blind eye to it? Or did they ever, did you ever reconcile with your parents, have this conversation afterward or anything? Or was this it? Was this your closure that you could get with him?
When I was 14, I think I was about 14, I was going into my second, I think it was October, going into my sophomore year of high school. And, you know, I used to cut myself, burn myself, anything. You know. And so I remember the one day they called and they said, you know, crisis services is coming to the house and we're going to, you need to talk to them, right? They're afraid I'm going to kill myself. I'm like, I'm not going to kill myself. Because at that time, I didn't feel like I was going to kill myself. Mm-hmm. You know, this was me burning myself and cutting myself it was enough of a fix to not want to just end it all, you know?
But as a parent, that's a pretty serious thing to watch their child do that.
Yeah, I would say so, but understanding my parents too, you know, It's like,
all right, yeah,
it's a conundrum, I'll say, you know.
Okay.
But so they said, we're going to have crisis service come. So they come and this is an answer to your question. So bear with me, but so crisis service comes and they say, "Well, we want you to go to the hospital and talk to somebody." I said, "Well, let's set up an appointment." Remember, I'm 14. I said, "Let's set up an appointment. We'll go." And I'll go, you know, and talk to them for an hour at the house. And like, "Well, we're going to bring an ambulance and we'll take you by ambulance there." I was like, "Why do I got to go by ambulance? Why can't I just set up an appointment and go and talk to your fucking doctor?" Right. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, "Well, let's just do that." And I'm like, "Okay, fine." So I concede. I get in the ambulance. They take me to the hospital. There are several hours before anyone's even coming to talk to me. They took my clothes. My father's sitting in the room with me. And after like 5 hours, whatever the fuck it was, literally 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, I go to the door. I say, "Hey, give me my clothes." They said, "You can't leave until the doctor sees you." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Obviously this guy's fucking busy." I said,
"Yeah,
set up an appointment. I'll come back and see him when he's available." They're like, "No, you can't leave." I was like, in my mind, I'm like, the fuck, I can't leave. I came here voluntarily from what I understood, but it was all bullshit, right? So I tell them to give me my clothes. I'll come back. They won't give me my clothes. And so I was like, I'm leaving. So they had several orderlies bum rush me, slamming me into the wall. They tie me down with bed sheets to a gurney. They're like, you're not fucking leaving. I mean, I'm literally feeling like I'm being kidnapped now.
Are you freaking out at this point?
Oh, I'm blasting them. You know, I'm like, fuck you motherfuckers.
Right,
you know?
yeah.
So, again, I am answering your question, but to understand some of the stuff that was happening. So they locked me up. They institutionalized me in this hospital. I'm in there several days.
By yourself?
By myself. I won't eat. I'm in a room with 2 or 3 cameras on me and a bed in the corner. I remember after several days, and as I said, I hadn't talked to anybody since the intake of that, after the fact that they fucking slammed me to a gurney, tied me up with bed sheets and shot me up with some shit to knock me out. Then I talked to somebody afterwards. You can imagine how fucking mad I was, you know?
Yeah.
And so, so they, I think it's like six or 7 days later. And finally, one of the doctors comes in on his rounds. Mind you, I haven't eaten in days. I won't eat. I won't go because I'm not a crazy fucking person, right? I'm a fucking broken kid. I'm a damaged kid that's been being abused. But they want me to go and sit and eat with fucking people that are eating their own shit and, you know, like they're fucking whack jobs, you know? And so...
That's a whole mental toll right there, watching that.
Yeah. So I'm like, I stayed in my room. And so this doctor comes in doing his rounds the one day. He's got like, I don't know, 5 or 6 residency students or whatever they are. And he says, this is one of our more dangerous patients on the floor. And then I don't say anything. And I'm like, this motherfucker I've never even talked to this guy. What do you know about how dangerous I am? Right? Because of some shit I was saying after you guys tied me up and fucking shot me up with fucking drugs. And like that guy.
Supposed to react.
Yeah. And, so he's just a couple and walked out of the room. So a couple more days, come back. Finally, my mother comes up.
Your mom hasn't come to visit you at all?
No, I'm in there several days before anyone comes to come see me. And finally, my mother comes up. I remember sitting on the bed with her. She said, why are you doing this? What's going on? And I tell her, Uncle's, Voldemort's been molesting me and all this other shit, blah, blah, blah. And, till the day she died, she denies that conversation ever happened, you know. But in that conversation, I said to her, I was like, you better get me out of this fucking place or our relationship is dead. I'll never fucking talk to you again. Because I didn't do anything to be in here. Well, they wouldn't release me. They told her, we will not release him. They wanted to send me away for observation for like 1.5 years or some shit. And I said, you better then get a fucking attorney because you motherfuckers did this to me. I don't need to be in here, right? Mm-hmm. And so some days happen, some of this, and they basically, my mother, I guess, threatens to get an attorney or whatnot. And finally, they let me out, but they let me out AMA.
What's that?
Against medical advisory.
Okay. So if anything does happen, then it covers their ass.
Yeah. So the following week, I go back to high school. Like I said, this is my 2nd month or 4th, 5th week of 9th, 10th grade. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I go to the office. I say, hey, I've been gone for a couple weeks and, just want to know what class is. Never had any problem in the school. Nothing happened at the school, nothing like that. And they say, yeah, you don't go to school here anymore. I said, what? I said, why? She said, you have to call this person. You've been put on home instruction now. I said, you're removing me from school for what? Because I was in the hospital. So because I was let out AMA, they wouldn't allow me to go back to school. So I didn't even get to finish high school.
Oh my God.
And there was a whole rigmarole, it's a boring story, but I couldn't get back into school.
Damn.
They wouldn't let me back in. And I was, no matter what logic I was like, if I if I just didn't go to school, you'd put my parents in jail, from what I understand. I'm trying to go to school, and you're telling me I can't go to school. Like, I don't get it. You know?
It makes sense.
And they put me on this home instruction, but the guy doing the home instruction, he was a principal at a school up the street. So he didn't want to do the home instruction, which he was supposed to, because he's getting paid after he gets out of work. So he'd have me coming to the school to get like work. I was like, if I can come to the school and get the homework from you, why can't I just be in school? Could never answer it. But anyway, I didn't get to finish high school. So I wound up getting my GED. But to the point, there was no reconciliation with my parents.
That sucks.
You know, there was no way for that to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I had a very fractured relationship with them.
Yep.
I'd see them from time to time. Sometimes there was good, but there'd be stretches 5-6 years I'd never talked to them. Okay. There was just, you know, and now I have almost no family, right? I opt out. Sure. You know, if you can't get on the same page as where we're at, I don't give a fuck. I got opt out from your nonsense.
So you confront your uncle for molesting you as a child. You beat him to an inch of his life. What did that feel like, getting revenge on somebody that abused you as a child?
It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like justice.
Okay.
On my neck, I have confront right here. Being able to confront him, to think like my whole life, like this guy had some power over me. Mm-hmm. Even when he didn't have power, I gave him that power. Because probably at 15, I could have beat the living fuck out of this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I was so damaged and broken, I couldn't see that. And it felt like justice.
Yeah.
It felt like this is the order of the universe. You've done this horrible thing that you must pay for. And the person that you did it to is going to make you pay for it.
Absolutely.
I don't need some intermediary. I'm not calling the police. I'm not doing any of these things. We're going to handle it right now, the two of us.
Are you glad you didn't bring the bat inside with you? Would you have used it?
I for sure would have used it. I would have killed him. I mean, I almost killed him with my bare hands. So it's, when I tell you he was lifeless, this dude was bleeding out. He was done. I think I would have beat his brains in.
For sure. What did your girlfriend, what was the conversation on the drive back after you got back in the car?
Family's going crazy. Everyone's screaming, running around the house.
For sure.
This dude's dying upstairs. I walk out, and my mother's looking at me. She's disappointed in me.
You let her down.
I'm fucking their shit up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because my parents don't got their shit together. They're living in this house with this fucking animal, and my grandmother, because they had no place to go, because they made horrible choices. You know what I mean? And it's like, she gave me this look like I'm fucking their shit up. You know? And so at that moment, I realized, like, and same in the hospital, I had this realization that my parents have 4 other kids that they had to care for. And I was gone. I'm a lost cause for them.
Yeah, you're the burden now.
And that's how I accepted it,
Yep.
You know. But to answer your question, I walked out, I grabbed a baseball bat. I looked like I gutted a pig I was covered in blood from fingertips to neck. I was covered in blood. Not mine, but his.
Yeah.
And I walked out, it's on my face, it's everywhere. I mean, I had to look crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And I walk out, and I got into the car. It's like, we can go. We didn't talk. And shortly after, we wound up breaking up. Because after that, the emotions of all of this stuff of my whole life that I'd carried around and tried to run from and hide from or kill or burn out of me or cut out of me, like, it was all coming back in a way that there's no like... There's no like manuscript. There's no like, hey, okay, like I have a stomach ache. Oh, you should drink some ginger ale. You know, there's no remedy, right? You just sometimes, and I'm sure you know this, that the only way is through. There's no getting around it or getting over things. It's just through. You got to go through it. And so, you know, when you're trying to manage this wellspring of perversion and what am I going to become now? Because the person I was is dead. The person I was, the minute I took my life back into my own hands and confronted this guy, that person's gone.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Once you confronted him and dealt the justice that needed to be dealt to him, was that a relief? Did that help at all? Did it change the trajectory of how you started thinking? Did it get you on a right path, or did you still have so much to unpack? I mean, I guess my question is, did it help finding your abuser, beating him to an inch of his life?
I would say yes, it helped, but not immediately.
Okay.
I didn't understand what was happening to me.
Okay.
Right? You're talking about the death of a soul, right? You've been this person for 18 years of your life, and that person's gone. That person's dead. That person does not see the world through the eyes of this broken kid. Now I've come into this adolescence, this broken adolescence of psychological frame of mind, right? Yep. Where it's like you're fumbling around with primitive tools, you know, like, okay, I did this thing, but where do I go from here? Right? Again,
with no guidance or anything.
Nothing. There's no adult. There's no one to talk to, right? The person that I would consider most loving to me at the time was my friend's mom, who's a junkie. She's a heroin junkie, which I wound up being, you know, doing heroin and stuff and ODing and
what?
So there's the chaos that came from the confrontation was something that I had. Like I said, I approached that door and knocked on that door when I was driving in the car. I didn't know what I'm saying to this guy. Am I going to walk onto that porch and fucking chicken out? Am I going to walk in there and be like, maybe now's not the time because whatever's going on? Am I going to take care of myself right now? Am I going to do this thing? Like, second by second, I had no idea what is coming for me. But I just know that I can't live like this anymore. And I had somebody that cared about me that acknowledged that. You can't live like this anymore because you will be dead, you know? And I had already been a musician and writing stuff and felt the pull of that to say, like, I can do something with this. I can, you know, I've survived this.
Yeah.
This will not break me. This will not kill me.
Yep.
I'm not that guy. And so, you know, but the chaos that came after it's hard.
What came afterward? Is that when you turned to drugs? Were you in the drugs at this point, or did that come later on?
I drank. We'd party. You know, we'd go into projects and booze and, you know, have like crazy benders. Maybe we'd, you know, do some blow or something. I mean, selling blow at 14. My other friend's mom was a dealer. We were selling coke for her.
What?
And yeah.
At 14?
Yeah. And
you're pushing drugs for your buddy's mom?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that come about?
I mean, it wasn't like we're on the corner hustling, you know.
But people knew you guys and you knew them?
You're at the skating rink, you know, you're at the roller skating rink and people want some action sacks, you know, so you're like, yeah, I got them, you know. Yeah. And then, you know, the abuse that I brought on myself after confronting him, of then getting into drugs, drinking. It's funny. There was a time where I wasn't drinking, but I was doing drugs, you know, like, there was no preparation. It wasn't like, look, like you're in the service, right? It's like, all right, bam, we're going to put you in basic training. And you're like, okay, all right, you're going to do push-ups. You're going to do these things. All right, fucking climb that wall, whatever, all the things. And you're like, okay, all right, now we're going to do this thing. And there's some progression from the things you learned. It's just like, here's your life. You were here. It's shit over here. Now we're going to drop you into this bucket of shit over here. There's no like, hey, some of these things that you learned along the way are going to be valuable here.
And you're figuring
can't make sense of it.
all of this out on your own as a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which you're not. I mean, you're just trying to survive with the trauma and everything.
Every
else
day is survival, man.
Yeah.
Every day is survival.
Damn, man.
Every day is. I told somebody one time, I was like, it's such a sad thing when I think about it that some people have to give themselves a reason to kill themselves. But I go to bed trying to give myself a reason not to kill myself. And, you know, I think there's an aspect of negativity begets negativity. You know, it's like, but when all you see and all you know and all you've known, that your whole world has been destroyed,
For sure.
perverted, twisted. It's a different thing, right? You know, I'd have friends as I got older. I'd have friends that complain about their parents or whatever, and be like, "You're lucky somebody even gives a fuck about you."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because somebody could tell you they love you, but if you're not speaking the same language, right? Like your idea of love and my idea of love are different. You don't let me get abused and tortured and fucking cigarettes put out in my face and different things like that. And then tell me you love me.
Yeah.
Like this is incompatible with me, you know, but you're really in that time after I had to really try to build a worldview that was palatable to the person I was becoming.
Was the person you're becoming a better version, or was it just a different version? Did you like the person you were becoming?
I don't know.
Point?
I don't know that I even thought much about it.
Okay.
You know, I knew that I didn't want to be a serial killer. I knew that I didn't want to be violent. I knew that I didn't want to be damaged. I didn't know how to not do that.
Yeah.
I wasn't certain how to get there, but I knew the things I didn't want in my life.
Did you have serial killer thoughts in a way? Did you ever, like, and I ask this because I'm not leaning into like Yard Now or anything, obviously, but a lot of kids that are abused, they start hurting animals, and then animals turn to people and things like that. Was that a path that you ever start to go down that you realized real quick, or you just started to snuff it out before everyone went there? Because you're listing pretty detailed, you know, violence, serial killer tendencies, or, you know, thoughts, whatever it may be, you know, all these things that you don't want to be. Were those things that you were battling?
I think they were things that I kept in my periphery.
Okay.
Because I knew that, you know, I used to study serial killers and what, you know, you want to understand the thinking that will bring somebody to this thought.
And a lot of them have some pretty traumatic childhood.
Right. So I had all the earmarks that all these people had, but I was determined that that was not what I would allow myself to become, even if it meant me taking my own life, if I felt like I got close to that.
Okay.
But there were certainly things where I've been in a lot of fights in my life, a lot of really violent fights, and almost like a blood rage. Like if we're fighting, you pay for everything. You don't get to pick and choose how the bear mauls you once you've poked him, you know? And so I didn't have a lot of restraint in the idea. And you know, you're a big guy, you know, I don't consider myself a big guy because I know big guys like 6'5", 340, you know, like giants, you know. But I'm a bigger dude, you know, and I'll mix it up if I have to. But when you do that without restraint, and you could kill someone with your bare hands. I'm capable of that. I know that. If you're not careful, you know, and even
you never had a father teaching you how to control any of your emotions, how to control the rage, the anger, any of these other things. So you're learning how to cope and deal with your dad and uncle, and were probably helping stoke the fire to that, instead of sitting here teaching a young man how to be able to use his emotions, everything like that. So it's wild to me that you've made it this far by going through all that all on your own.
I have a funny story. I find it funny. I also know that it's highly disturbing.
Okay.
But you had mentioned my father, and I must have been about 7, 8 years old, maybe I was 9, somewhere in there, you know, you're under 10. And it had to be around that time, 8-ish. And I was the oldest of 5. My parents are a wreck. They're a fucking disaster, you know. My father worked his ass off, very talented. Both my parents are highly intelligent people, very intelligent people.
Okay.
Which was always confounding because I got 2 highly intelligent people that can't make good choices and good decisions.
Yeah.
It's fucking maddening, right?
Yep.
And so they wanted me to, you know, they'd have me do the dishes. Well, every dish in the house is fucking dirty. I'm 8 years old. I don't want to do the fucking dishes, right? So twice my father sat with his pistol in his lap, once to make me do the dishes while he sat there for hours, having me stand at a sink doing dishes against my will. And then another time, my mother used to make liver. I fucking hate liver.
Liver and onions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently she was great at it. Liver, onions, bacon, you know.
That's that boomer generation. They ate a lot of that.
You know.
Yeah.
But it always tastes like a roll of pennies to me.
Yeah,
I couldn't eat it,
100%.
you know, too minerally. And so it was time for a Mexican standoff because you make this fucking meal. And I'm like, I ain't eating it anymore. You know, and again, it's around the same age. And my father said, you're eating the fucking food. You know, we're poor. We got no, you know. And he goes, you're not leaving the table until you eat that dinner. I'm like, I ain't eating that fucking dinner, so I guess we'll sit here all night. He sat with his pistol on the table. I'm probably 7, 8 years old, whatever it was, and sat there all night with this plate of fucking liver in front of me until the next morning at like 6:30 in the morning. He says, get up and go to school. We just sat there staring at each other, dozing off or whatever. And then I went to school. I never had to eat liver again, though. You know, so dealing with a different thing here, you know.
Yeah.
And so at 18, when you're trying to make sense of a nonsensical world at this point, you know, you don't, there's no like, you don't know how to get there, right? Yeah. Especially, you know, I'm sleeping with friends, mom's friends. They're, you know, I'm 14 years old. These women are 35, you know, weird shit like that. You know, it's like they're just, every person around you isn't the person to go to help you.
So you had nobody.
Nothing.
You were a feral child.
1,000%.
As close as you can get.
Yeah. And let me say this. This isn't a pity party for me at all.
This is your story, yeah.
Because the one thing that I always told myself, even from a young age, and anyone listening to your podcast, I hope if anyone has dealt with this stuff or whatever, is that you got to be careful about the things you normalize in your life, right?
Yep.
It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter how you were brought up, you know. These things matter in the sense that they formed opinions and ideas about you, but those things can be changed.
Absolutely.
You know, and I always thought that no matter how bad I had it, I know that other people had it worse. I know that other people lived in nightmares that I may not survive. Mm-hmm. You know, I know the stuff that I survived, people have taken their lives over.
For sure.
You know, just one little fraction of it, and you know, we'll get into this other stuff, you know, but that's such an important thing, man, that, you know, you could survive anything.
Absolutely.
You know, but it requires you to know that when you're weak, you got to have strong people around you.
I've never heard anybody say that. I'm going to steal that for sure.
Thank you.
Careful how you normalize things, because I feel a lot of people normalize their problems or their disabilities or their PTSD, and it becomes normal. It's my life now, instead of trying to find, because I deal with a lot with vets.
Right.
And I talk to these guys, and my biggest thing in the last couple of years has been trying to create new identities for them, because now that you say this, it clicks for me. It's like they've normalized being a disabled veteran.
Right.
They've normalized being this grumpy old piece of shit, and oh, my kids are going to just hate me just because. Like, because we normalize these things instead of being like, that's not normal.
Right.
This happened 20, not for you, but, you know, a lot of guys, happened 20 years ago. This,
sure.
You know, and so I really, that I like how you say that. I've never heard anybody put it like that, but to me, like that's what makes sense, is trying not to normalize the negative on things or certain things, because we as humans tend to, when you're around and you're surrounded by, that's just normal. That's just my life now. That's how it was. It was that's how it's supposed to be. Well, no, it's.
Well, when, if you look at, different guys, I've watched videos of like Vietnam vets talking about, being, going through the jungle, and then they'd come upon like, again, I'm going to fuck up these words, but platoon, battalion, group of guys, whatever. And this guy's arms are chopped off. They dismembered him. This guy's arm's on that leg, and that leg's pushed on where somebody's head should be, and the head's down where a leg should be, and the black guy's head on a white guy's body. Just all this stuff, guerrilla warfare. And it's like, you see these things, that you have a new normal, right? And you can always have a new normal, but it's not like ordering a sandwich at a deli, right? You don't just get to pick, I want it like this and that. You have to work towards it. Yeah. And you're going to fail a lot. And that's the thing, is working through, like so many times where I would like, wish I wouldn't have done that thing. Why did I this? Why did I that? Why did I say that thing? Why didn't I do this instead of that? It's like, but you can't give up the mission, right? You can't give up to say like, I just can't get there. Yeah. Because I always think, well, if that guy can fucking do it, I can definitely do it. No matter what it is, you know. And even if I can't get there, but that's the direction I'm fucking going. Yeah. And if I fall short of it, then I fall short of it, But this isn't okay. I can't. This can't ever be a thing.
This is not supposed to be normal.
So when you. Man, I have so many stories I could tell you. Be like, dude, you gotta shut the fuck up here, because it's, bro. I mean, I've seen my first person murdered. I was probably 10 years old, watching him have his head beat in outside my window over a storm drain, while I'm hearing his fucking head cracking coming through a window over a storm drain, while this guy's beating him to death. I'm 7, 8 years old, and our neighbor used to live upstairs of us. We lived by a junkyard, and my father and this guy, he would go and. They go and unload trucks in the morning, like from a farmer's market, and get paid cash, under the table. And the one night, Hank was the guy. Hank decided to go without my dad. And I remember we were watching the movie The Fog. I'm probably 7 or 8, so we're watching The Fog. I mean, think about what I'm telling you here. Okay. I'm a fucking kid watching a horror movie with my parents or whatever. And I don't know, it's maybe sometime early evening, and 6:30 to 8 o'clock, something like that. And Hank used to wear clogs, and we had a wooden porch. So whenever he'd come home, you heard him clomping up the fucking porch with these clogs, And so I hear these fucking clogs clomping up the porch, and then I hear the door open. I'm in the living room here, and it's a split duplex, and I hear bomb, bomb, bomb on the door. So I go over to the door. I imagine it's Hank, right? And I was like, who is it? And I hear, Hank. I was like, Hank? And I open the door, and here's this guy standing with a hunting knife sticking out of his chest. He had just been stabbed 5 times in the chest. Some dudes rolled him for his cash that he got from fucking unloading the trucks. And I'm watching this guy like bleeding out in front of me. And I yelled at my mom. I'm like, hey, Mom, Hank needs your help. The guy survived, but they stabbed him 5 times and left like a Rambo knife in his fucking chest, So it's like the stuff that I've seen in my life, and it will become relevant to when we talk about 9/11. Okay. Because I've carried these things. I thought about these things, from a young age, a 4-year-old kid. Yeah. It's just like, they're making me do this. You're teenagers, 16-year-old kids are making me do this to their sister. And, so it's like, when you live and think about these things in your life, who you are, what you are, I don't know what I am anymore. Right. I'm some kind of monster that's been put in a human form, that, I've been broken and dissected and ripped apart and put back together myself with broken pieces and parts to exist in this world. And despite all of that, I'm like, I'm a good person. You know what I mean? Like all this shit I've been made to do and part of and this and that. It's like, I'm a good person, man. I'm going to fight for that. Even if when I stand at heaven's gates, it's like, bro, come on, you know where you got to go. I'm like, all right, well, I tried.
Nah, they don't work like that.
I don't know.
They don't work like that.
I don't know. But the thing is that, you know, these things in our life are important, but you gotta normalize the importance of what it is, right? Because sometimes you're learning things that you can't understand at the time. It might take years before you finally, you know, it happens all the time. I'm writing a new record right now with my band, The Elite, and I've been voraciously gobbling up philosophy for the last 2 years working on this record, and I go through and I reopen all these wounds and I inspect every piece and part of me in there. It's like, is there still something hiding under there that I got to get out? Is there still something there that needs, and so you're constantly like opening these wounds and going back in. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'll write something and it'll click something that happened 30 years ago in my life. And I'm like, and it helps me make sense of it, And so I think for people going through these kinds of traumas, it's vitally important that you don't shy away from it.
Okay.
Because it's down in the slime, in the shit inside of us where the answers are.
Yep.
And sometimes the answers aren't what we want to hear.
Oh.
Sometimes the answers are, man, you got to make this choice for you. That because if you're not okay and you're not good, and I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm in bands with guys, like people counting on me for stuff. It's like, if I can't show up, if I can't be there, what good am I?
Yep. All the people involved with everything you've gone through, have you ever found forgiveness for any of them? Have you ever found a place to, not when I mean forgive them, not be friends with them again and invite them into your life, but for me, I ask because like, if I don't forgive somebody, I can never get past it. Doesn't mean I'm going to be boys with them. It doesn't mean I'm ever going to trust them. Doesn't mean I need them in my life. Nothing. They could rot in hell for all I care. But there's a point of me where, like, if in order for me to move on and close a chapter, it's like, okay, he was this person for whatever reason, or did this to me for whatever reason. Have you ever tried to look and look for not a reconcile, but just as an acceptance, and they're just who they are and time to move on, or are you just that's who it is, who they are?
What you're talking about is such a powerful thing.
Absolutely. It takes a lot.
And I'll tell you, I've been on a spiritual journey my entire life. Mm-hmm. I was raised by a lesbian Catholic and a Baptist fucking nut job. Okay, so I've every which way religion religion was like a cudgel being used against me. Mm-hmm. And so for a long time I shied away from it, but as I think back, and I've been doing this a lot in the last few years, in the last 5 years since my daughter was born, the power of God, the essence of God, the pull of God for me towards it is undeniable. And I know that there's so many times I could tell you where this is divine intervention.
Absolutely.
I'm only alive because of divine intervention. And there's 3 like really significant things that I tell you I should be dead. I should be dead but this is God. God did this.
Okay.
I was homeless living on the streets in Pittsburgh and in the middle of winter. And I used to I went there to go to college. And I think I was about 23 years old to go to like the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. And I was in there for about a week and a half. I was in a dorm room with a bunch of rich jerk-off kids. I wound up getting a case of St. Ides, pounding that down and throwing their TV off the fucking 5th floor balcony. I was like, I'm going to murder these guys. I got to get out of here. So homelessness was a better option for me because violence was coming, So I'm homeless on the streets. I got some people down there I know, but I would ride what I would do is like certain nights it's freezing cold in Pittsburgh, right? You're from the East Coast, so. And so I would ride the bus. I found a bus line that would run till like 1:30 or 2 in the morning or something, and I'd ride the bus for as long as I could until the bus line ended, and then I'd go find somewhere to sleep in a doorway or whatever. And so I would ride this bus line, a couple times a week or whatever, a few times a week. And the one time we're on here and I'm talking, I got to know the driver a little bit because he kind of knew my story. He's like, I'm on the fucking bus every night, these freezing cold nights, here's this fucking dumb kid on the bus for God knows whatever reason. So he kind of knew my story, and I'm sitting there talking to him, and it's just he and I, just the driver and me. I'm sitting up in the front, and we're going through this industrial area. I mean, there ain't even rats out, it's desolate. There's nothing around. And I'm talking to him, and I'm like, man, I got to find some place to live. I can't keep doing this, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, and he's like, we're just jawing. And the bus stops. It's probably like 1:30 in the morning. Bus line's got maybe 20, 30 minutes, left. And this blind guy gets on the bus. And I remember in that moment, Bam, I'm looking at him, and I'm in the worst place in my life. I'm fucking homeless. I'm like in a strange city. I'm not from there. I'm like trying to hustle food wherever. I'm fucking down and out, bro.
Yeah.
And and this blind guy gets on, and I'm like, sorry, man.
Oh, you're good, man. Take your time.
And he gets on the bus, and I'm like, I feel so much pity and so much sorrow for him. To think I know how horrible this world is. I've seen the worst in people my whole life. To be in this world blind, to not even be able to look out for yourself. And when he got on, like a fucking boss, man, he got on, he sat down in his seat. Bus starts taking off. I go back talking to the bus driver. Remember, I'm in the worst place in my life right now. And the blind guy says, hey, friend, can I give you some advice? Because I continued talking with the bus driver, and he says, if you're looking for a place and you ever rent, don't rent from these landlords. They're slumlords. They're scum. I was blown away by the idea of this guy that I felt such sorrow and pity for, offering me advice, offering me a hand, even though I don't remember the people's names he said, but it was the idea that I couldn't imagine living a life like that with the bullshit that I've been through.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, man. And that changed everything for me at that point. My thinking, I was like, I gotta take my life back here. To me, that was divinity. There was no
Wasn't a coincidence.
No coincidence.
No.
But, and I'll tell you one other one real quick, because it has to do with the idea.
You have water right here next to you if you need it.
Oh, thanks, bud.
Yeah.
About the pull of God in my life. That I might have been about 25-ish at this point. I'm in another band. Some friends of mine. I'm with my buddy Eddie. Amazingly talented guy. Abuse and trauma stole a chunk of his life.
Yep.
one of the most talented guitar players, funny as all. He could have been a comedian, musician. He would have been a rock star, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And so we're on our way to band practice, and getting on the freeway, and my car stalls out. And so push it off to the side of the road. It's on the on-ramp to get on the freeway, the 90. Okay. So, and so I get out of the car, I go in the front, I open the hood, get underneath, I start monkeying around with the wires and shit under there. I had a vacuum hose leak. My buddy's in the car, and I turn my head and I say, hey, turn the key, you know, and he's turning the key. Okay, nothing happened. Okay, under there again, under again. All right, turn the key, you know, nothing happened, nothing. Third time I say it, fucking lady smashes into the back of the car at about 40 or 50 miles an hour.
You're standing in front of it.
Standing in front of it.
So you end up in the engine compartment.
I go flying ass over tea kettle through the air. I'm laying on the ground. I don't know what happened at this point.
Yeah.
I'll put this together after, and I'll explain to you how. And I'm laying there, and I see the car. She hit the car so fucking hard that it's going down in the ravine. Now it's going back up onto the freeway. My buddy's in the car. I see him dive out of the window. I'm laying there. I'm like, oh, at least he's okay. Like, he was able to jump out of a window, you know, while the car's moving. This dude's laughing all the time, joking all the time. He comes running up to me in terror. He's like, bro, don't move. Don't move. Don't move. He thought my guts were, like, if I would turn over, everything's spilling out of me.
Yeah.
So, broad to hit the car. She's fucking running around screaming, whatever. I'm telling her, shut the fuck up. She never came over to see how I'm doing or nothing, you know.
Worried about her car.
Yeah, so I apologize for the swearing, man, from New York. You know how it is.
This is the Wild Chaos podcast, man. They've heard it all.
Yeah, I bet. So, it's about 4:30 in the afternoon. The ambulance shows up. They tell me, my neck is so swollen, I can't put a neck brace on you. We got to strap your head to the board. We don't know if your neck's broken. You can't move. Like, this is a serious thing that's happened here. All right. They tell me I'm not going to walk for a few months. You know, I don't know how fucked up I am. I mean, it happened real quick, you know. Yeah. So, we're in there, and like 11:30 at night, I walk out of the place on crutches.
Okay.
Right. So like a week and a half later, I go with my grandmother to go and pick up the belongings out of the car. I walk in, the lady's on the phone. She's, I was like, hey, I'm here. It was a Honda CRX, so it's a little shitbox hatchback, yep. You know. And she says, I'm here, you know, she's on the phone. And I said, yeah, I'm here to get the stuff out of the Honda, you know. And she's like, hey, I got to call you back. She hangs up the phone. She goes, oh my God. She's like, you are so lucky to be alive. I was like, you don't got to tell me. I know.
Yeah, I lived it.
And she goes, you must have been wearing your seatbelt. I said, seatbelt? I said, lady, that car hit me. I was standing in front of it. All the color left her face. She looked like she was staring at a ghost. So she takes me to the car. The girl hit the car so hard that it twisted the rear end of the car up, almost onto the roof. It blew every window out of the car. The force from behind, it ripped the radio out of the dashboard. Okay, and it like everything's just laying right there.
How was your buddy okay?
The front of the car, you could see where the car horseshoed around my body. You could see where the hood of the car horseshoed around my neck and accordioned in. You could see where my toes smashed through the windshield because I had steel toe docks on and there were 2 toe imprints. And then you could see where my head smashed the windshield on the other. So what I think happened is that the car hit me. It hyperextended my knees backwards, somehow flipped me over the hood. My toes hit the windshield on the driver's side, and my head hit the windshield like support rod on the passenger side, and then sent me flipping through the air. And when I looked at that, I was like, only God can do that. Only God can do that. And so,
holy crap.
You know, these things in my life where I'm like, I feel the pull of God's power,
for sure.
His presence. I've seen it in my daughter's birth, my son's birth, all of it. It's undeniable. But see, I know that I am tragically broken, and I will be my whole life. And so that forgiveness, I've heard people say that, hatred is like swallowing a poison pill, hoping somebody else gets sick or dies from it. Mm-hmm. But see, for me, that hatred and those things, I have found a way in my life that they matter more, that I keep that in to me, because I put that in my music.
Okay.
I put that in my songs because I know that there's kids out there that don't have support.
For sure.
I know that there's adults out there that don't have the support. And it's not that they may never hear of me. It might not get there, but it might get to one. And that's why I do what I do.
Have you ever thought about writing music for forgiveness? What about the people that have gone through the journey?
Well, I do. I mean, all my songs, man, I write from multiple perspectives.
Good. Okay.
Depending on where you're at in your life, you know, when you listen. And I hope that the breadcrumbs in there are valuable to somebody, no matter what point in their life that they're at, because I'm not done with my journey, right? Mm-hmm. I'm still going, and so, but that, I don't think I'm capable of that forgiveness, man. Okay. I would never put that rage down. I would never put that hatred down, because these people, I'm a firm believer, man, and no matter what's happened in your life, no matter what kind of bullshit you've been through, that you have a moral obligation to protect the people you love and care about from your own bullshit.
Absolutely.
And so I keep it close because I never want it to blindside me. I can't let it out of my sight because I know how violent and dangerous it can be.
How do you control it then? I mean, obviously you're not bottling it, because then that overflows at points, and
Well, I write all the time. I work out. I started cold plunging.
Okay.
It's funny. I go to the river. I was there yesterday. The river was 36 and it was 25 out.
Yep.
It did like 6 minutes in there, and I just stare at the sun and I thank God for my life and my family and everything. Okay. And I want to find a way to unfuck someone's mind if I can.
Yep.
And so I'll keep searching. And to me, that's helpful for me. It's not, I don't feel like I'm ever out of control, because I have control of it now. Yeah. It doesn't control me. If I need to feel a certain way, I go and get it. I go to the apothecary and I pull it off the shelf and I say, here's what we need it. And then when I don't need it, it's gone. It's not a thing, but having that level of control, again, it requires effort.
Oh,
it requires being realistic to know,
being true to yourself.
You have to always be true to yourself,
mm-hmm.
because you can easily put yourself in situations that, will undermine, will only empower your enemies against you, so if you don't keep control of it, you will become your own worst enemy. Yep. As we've, many of us have been, so.
Music's such a powerful thing too. Like I'm music.
Nice.
Music. And I think she's the same. If I find myself a couple days without listening to certain music, I start getting irritable.
What do you listen to?
I honestly, everything. I could go from the most classical music to the most Viking death metal and everything in between.
Awesome.
It just depends on the mood, the feel.
Yeah.
I can't listen to half the new shit that's coming out these days. It's just such garbage. And I'm like, it's fun arguing with the young kids, because I'm like, no, why are you listening to all the Mom and I shit? Yeah. Our music, like we were the last generation to have good, like, rap, good metal, good rock, everything. There's actually some new up and coming bands that, like, for sure, you find every now and then. But
hard to find though.
It is. It's all the underground stuff, and that's what her and I are always on the search for. She'll send me that, if you ain't seen this, and I'm like, hey, have you checked these guys out?
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
So
that's great that you guys have that.
Music is the wife. She's more of a reader. So is our little one. She's a reader too, but yeah, for her and I, it's music. Like even when it comes to podcasts, there's a couple every now and then I'll be like, oh, I want to check this podcast out, and I'll listen to them.
Yeah.
But then I catch myself straight back to music. As soon as there's a gap or a pause, straight back to music. And then, because I'll drive I could drive for 14 hours. As long as I have music, I won't even, if I never needed to stop, I would not stop. So I'm a music person for sure.
Awesome.
I connect with music. I feel music. And that's where I've gotten a lot into, because a lot of people always ask me, like, because, I'm on a spiritual kick and journey. Like, I'm getting back and deep into my faith. And a lot of people ask, like, how do you find it? It's worship. I could listen to 1,000 pastors talk. I might be able to connect with a handful.
Right.
That speak to me, that they captivate my heart, my thoughts, my everything that's going on. I'm like, okay, I can get behind Sky. It doesn't matter where it is, who it is, how it's being sung. Like, for me, worship that's where I'm like, okay, this is my church. Like, huge stadiums of people worshiping together is like my dream. Like, that's
awesome.
I can go to one of them, dude. Leave it all there, die the next day. Cool. Like, check, right? That's me. So hearing you talk about how you're putting all this through music, like, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I can't relate because I'm not writing music, but when I'm your audience,
you're a fan, man. So
I'm a fan. So when you talk about the one person being able to listen, dude, there's so many people we've talked to and kids and people that, like, I can't. It's hard for me to judge people like the Swifties. I don't have Swiftie kids, thank God. But you hear them talk like, oh, Taylor Swift. And I'm like, that's not fucking music. But if it's helping them in a way, I guess it's helping them. So it's hard to not cast a shadow on their shade on them, Well,
generationally though, too, it's tough. And the music has changed tremendously. And it's changed because access to music is different.
Yep.
And how music is created is very different.
Yes.
You think like, back to Black Sabbath, their first 2 albums came out in like a year and a half apart.
Yeah.
And they're masterpieces.
Yes.
But now you got people that'll spend a year, 2 years, like creating one song in a bedroom, but they know how to manipulate an algorithm so they can get the numbers and it's all like, it's very curated and weird. That's not to say that there's not talented people. I've got buddies that are engineers and Grammy nominated artists that are a friend of mine and, different things like that. But music now, like anyone can make music.
Oh yeah.
There's no gatekeepers.
Yeah.
You
don't need a producer anymore. You don't need to know anybody anymore. It's just,
that's right. That's right. But it also changes how people receive music, right? Because pop music, like I listen to everything, right? I love Ray Charles and Johnny Cash and Howlin' Wolf, and I go back and I'll listen to shit that's from the 1920s, some Cab Calloway or different stuff.
This talent and just the voices that they had,
all of it. Now and there's so many, like, throughout the years, so many great artists, and think of like a Led Zeppelin, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But now, like, when you get into this new phase of where music is, creators, there's a guy out of Wales called Ren. I don't know if you've heard Ren.
I feel like I have heard Ren.
Man, he's a guy that I don't know much about him. I've seen a bunch of his performances. He'll go and do some busking on the street, and he's amazing. And he's kind of like a rap guy, but then there's like kind of folk, but then there's kind of metal. And it's a real like hodgepodge of like different styles and different things put together, but done in a very unique way. Okay. Super talented, man. And
that's what I like, talent. I love people with this like a raw talent. That's what.
And I think, even, you look at someone like a Kendrick Lamar, who, I think it was like Section 80 was. That album to me, man, is a masterpiece, modern hip hop record, rap record, whatever the genre is considered. But then the stuff he's done later, it's just like kind of bullshit. It's like, man, he did something that was so like wholly unique and just like him. You know what I mean? Like if you think of like a Biggie album or, any of this stuff, and bands like Stained or these different artists, that there was a thing where, like, in the new metal era, when it was coming up, everyone was doing their own kind of thing. No one's trying. But now it's like you got 50 bands that are trying to sound like one band.
All copy. Yeah.
It's just like, or now it's like the AI stuff is infiltrating all this stuff. So I think it's hard, and for me, it's very difficult because I abandoned all social media some years back, through COVID and stuff. You had friends that were losing their fucking mind, like just going batsu, I was like, man, I got
a lot of things about a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I was like, and political discussions again, and we're going to get into some of that, where it's like people are they're so ill-informed. They don't want to be informed. They want to retreat to their little like places. And it's like, I seen it infiltrate music, and that like killed it for me.
As soon as you start pushing an agenda with things, that's where I'm out.
I seen it with music that really fucked me up, because when I was a kid, I'd go to see like Destruction and the Cro-Mags, and like these people, like, these are outlaws to me. These are people like, they ain't singing pop music. Yeah. They're doing some shit that, you're lucky if you could fill a fucking, a Knights of Columbus Hall or something, and then I'm hearing some of these guys like telling people to go and get a jab, and I'm like, whoa, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And then trying to like, and
these were hardcore dudes back in the day.
And wherever you are in that, man, I don't give a shit. That's somebody else. That's your own personal business. But the problem is like, you see people like giving these false equivalences, like, oh, I used to do cocaine, so go get the jab. It's like, fuck you, motherfucker. You're not even talking about the same thing here, And then, you got a band like Rage Against the Machine. It's like, you got 25,000 people out here with fucking masks on screaming, fuck you, I won't do what you told me. Yeah. It's like, bro, you didn't let anyone in that wasn't fucking vaccinated. Like, what are you talking about here?
It's ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like you've missed the plot here.
I'm going to stand up against the government and the regime and everything else, and now you're pushing this.
You rage like, for the machine. It's like, and
rage for the machine.
And it's like so much of that stuff. So I abandoned social media, which hurts me as a musician, right? I mean, my guitar player's in different band, 2 different bands, and they have social media, and my drummers have social, and it's just like, for me, it's one of those things that I've seen like so much perversion in my life.
For sure.
And I see how that even the social media has perverted people's thinking.
Well, it's perverted itself, the whole entire thing.
Sure. It's like, I just had to abandon it. And I think it's fucking hurt me in the music world, right? Because everyone wants access to know like when you go and take a shit and what sandwich you're eating for lunch. And, it's like, I'm a carpenter. I do carpenter, I'm working on our house. I do, take care of the kids, It's like, I'm never sitting around, like just sitting around. Right. Yeah. And I would see like when I had social media that, some guys are posting 4 or 5 times a day. I'm like, when the fuck do you have time for that?
I don't know if we shift gears here or not, because we're an hour and a half into this, because I feel like I could do a 4-hour episode of just your life story. But I know we want to get onto the World Trade Centers. I'm going to kind of leave it up to you, because
I'm down, man. Let's.
Okay. I know we came here to talk because you were in the World Trade Center, but damn, dude, I feel like we haven't scratched the surface.
Oh no, for sure.
Anything. So that's where I'm like sitting here, like, damn.
Well,
dude,
we can get into it, and then
so I guess I could always have you back, right? You're right down the street.
If it's worthwhile, yeah, for sure.
Okay, dude, we're in one of the World Trade Centers, the first World Trade Center.
Yeah, I was in the North Tower.
You were in the North Tower when it got hit by the plane.
First plane. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Walk me through the day that you were in the North Tower when it got struck by the plane.
So I worked in the city. I worked on the Lower East Side at a bar. Shout out to Whiskey Ward. Great bar. And I worked there in the evenings. I lived in Dirty Jersey. I was living in Bayonne at the time. And I worked in the union, so I would I worked during the day doing construction. I work at night at the bar, and then that was my life. I'd work and sleep, and so I got laid off from the union, and so I had to go to unemployment. And I'm never in the city in the morning. I'm in the city at night.
Yep.
Right. So they tell me I got to go to unemployment. I'm like, I look up the office. Okay, it's a couple blocks over from the trade center. My girlfriend at the time, she worked at a sandwich shop up on 14th and 6th. And so I was like, well, I better get there right in the morning, or I'll be, I won't leave until 8 o'clock at night, because a million people going to be in there. So I was like, fuck it. I rode the train in at like 6:30 in the morning or something like that. The office didn't open until 8 o'clock or I think it was about 8 o'clock when it opened. So I rode the train in early, so I wouldn't oversleep, and I could, be there. I went to the office. I slept on a bench out in front for like an hour and a half, waiting for the office to open. I didn't have an appointment. I get in there. I'm like 1/1,000,000th in line anyway, because everyone else got appointments. And finally, I start talking to the lady, and I said, hey, bomb, this is what's happening, what I need. And she's like, you're at the wrong place. You got to go to Staten Island. Oh, I was like, Staten Island? I'm like, my day's fucked. I got to, I'm like, fuck, I got to go home. I'll try again tomorrow. By the time I got to Staten Island, I was just like, whatever. So I go back to the trade center, and I'm walking in the Vesey side door. And the Vesey side door is the side that the plane impacted.
Okay.
Have you ever been in the trade center before?
No. I've never even been to New York City, and I'm from New York, so.
Well, it's a fucking shithole now.
That's why I've never had a desire to go.
Such a shame. I hope they work that out. But, the trade center, the two buildings, North and South Tower, underneath that is like a mall. Like the concourse level is a mall.
Okay.
Tons of stores, clothing stores, food shops. The door I walked in, there was a Sbarro was there, and a watchmaker was on the other side. And you walk in down this long corridor, and then once you get in there, you walk across the floor, and then you get over to an area where there was a bank of escalators that went down to the PATH train to go back to Jersey. So I'm walking, get to the door, walk in the door, walk down the corridor, bing, bong, boom, make my way across the floor. I get to the top of the bank of the escalators, and all of a sudden fucking people are running every which way, screaming, right? And I'm like, I can't, they're not running in a direction. They're just running everywhere, right? They're not, I can't see, I'm trying to see, are they running from something? A guy got a knife, a gun? So, is there a thing, right? But it's just people scattering every which way.
Where's the threat?
And finally some, and this is seconds, I'm talking seconds, right? Some older woman, I'm 53 now. She might have been 50 or 50, 60 years old. Who knows? But she, older lady comes running by screaming, they bombed the building. They bombed the building. And I remember, my buddy was living in New York in like 93, 94 when they bombed the first time with the Ryder truck in the basement. And I immediately like, fuck, I got to get out of here. So I start running back to the corridor that I just had walked in. And it's filling up. Hundreds of people are already like, flooding. The doors I just walked in, you can't get to them because there's 100, 200 people blocking the corridor, right? And they're all screaming, go back, you can't get out this way, go back. And I immediately, I was like, the mindset I had was, there's not a fucking force on this planet that will keep me from going through these doors. If I got a cannonball through them, I'm going out those fucking doors. So I push my way through the crowd, and I push my way up to the fucking doors, and I look, and there's fucking debris on fire outside the door. And it's debris from the building, debris from the plane. I don't know what this is yet. I just see that there's fire outside the door. And all these people are standing there, and I'm thinking, why the fuck are we standing here? These doors are unlocked, right? And I'm looking around, and I work in construction. I've worked in a cemetery. I've done a lot of different stuff in my life. So I'm just assessing what I'm looking at.
In seconds.
And in seconds. In the building, there was a cantilever to the building. So I open the door, and I start shoving people out. I said, you got to get out. Stay tight to the building. You got to get out. Get out. And I'm pushing them out the door, and I'm shoving them down the side of the building, right? And I push maybe 10, 12, whatever, some amount of people, and I'm shoving them out the door, and then finally I like fucking bolt out the door, and I run across the street.
So you got the flow going out the door.
I got the flow. They're no one's moving, bro.
Okay.
They're just standing there waiting to die is what's happening. And so I get out the door. I get across Vesey. I'm standing at Vesey in church, and I make a phone call. I call my girlfriend. I'm like, they just bombed the fucking building. She's like, you got to get out of there. It's all over the news, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm hearing that a plane hit it.
Have you looked up yet?
I looked up, but remember, first thing I heard was a bomb.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how the fuck they get a bomb on the 80th floor? Like, your brain ain't working right.
For sure.
You're just like, I'm like trying to assess like some CSI bullshit. Like, and I'm just like, what the fuck? So I call her. It's like, you got to get out of there. And then I call. No one can get calls out. So I still have the phone. It's like some old Nokia phone.
Yeah.
I still have the phone that I called on. I made 3 calls before I could make any more calls. I called her. I called a friend of mine that was in a band. He was up at Roadrunner Records. I call him like, bro, I was in the fucking Trade Center. And he's like, bro, come meet me up at Roadrunner. And we're going to, they shut down the city. I mean, chaos it's crazy, right? Yep. So, and then I let some lady make a call because she couldn't get a phone call out. So I'm standing there at Vesey and Church. Police are ushering us across Church Street. Buildings are emptying. People, I mean, there's, 50,000 people like coming out of this building. Thousands and thousands of people, and I'm standing at Church Street and I'm looking up and I'm looking at the building and all of a sudden like fucking, guys, people are jumping, one after another. They're coming out of the building.
Did you know there were people jumping like immediately?
Oh, yeah.
You knew immediately.
Yeah. It was unmistakable.
Are they landing in front of you or are they hitting the awning?
Well, they're hitting probably that. The towers came up and I think there was like an awning type of thing around the base. Yep. I can't say that I seen anyone hit the ground, but I could tell you that in my mind I was feeling of hearing something, like they would land like sacks of potatoes landing on the ground.
Was it loud?
I mean, it's loud. People are screaming, puking, screaming, don't jump. I mean, it's mayhem. It's bedlam in the streets right now. One after another, people are coming out of the building and I'm staring at the building. I'm just like, man, what's going on here? Like, what's happened? And again, I'm hearing a plane hit it. I'm hearing a fucking bomb went off. And it's like completely disorienting, right? So then I start, I start walking up Church Street. I'm there like several minutes, 10 minutes. When I hear the timeline, like sometimes they'll do a timeline. It's like, at 8:59, this was this. And they go, I know every footstep where I was when I hear that timeline. So whatever the span of time from in between when the first plane hit to when the second plane hit.
Yep.
Okay, I know all that where I was and what was happening. So 10 minutes, whatever it was, I can't watch another person jump to their death.
How many people do you think?
7, 10, I don't know. I mean, it was enough. It was like one after another they're coming out. Because I know they're coming out because they're on fire. They're on fire, or there's fire pushing them out they're like getting near this door. And I worked on skyscrapers. I worked on the Goldman Sachs building, which was the tallest building in the tri-state area after the trade centers fell. So I've been up, in these buildings when the wind is crazy up there. When you got a fucking giant hole in the side of a building 80 floors up, the wind is wild. I can tell you it's wild.
For sure.
So you're thinking about all this stuff and whatever. So I start walking down Church Street. I got about 5 blocks away from Vesey and Church. And I can't remember, it's either Murray or Warren, the street I was at. And I remember turning and I'm looking at the building and I'm seeing the paper billowing out and flames billowing out and the smoke coming out and, paper floating to the ground. Like, and just watching all this stuff. And I'm like, man, what the fuck is going on? And I see the second plane banking around the building. And I remember thinking, I'm like, man, this plane is so low. I'm like, are they trying to get a look at what happened? Like you're not thinking it's a fucking jetliner. Yeah. Like they're not just going to go and like, hey, let's go see what happened to that building. And they're going to fly down into the city, right? Yeah. Into the fucking skyline of the city. But I see this plane banking around the building, and I remember I'm just like, I turned and I took 2 steps, and I hear an explosion that makes every hair on my body stand on end. And I immediately start running because debris is being shot down the street like it was shot out of a cannon.
So it hit from the backside of the building, so it came out towards your direction.
Correct.
Okay.
So whenever you see the footage of the tower being hit, the second tower, there's a very pronounced ball of fire that shoots out in an unmistakable arc.
Okay.
And that's one of the engines from the second plane. And I know that because 5 blocks away, as I'm fucking running, trying to get around the corner of a building because shit's flying down the fucking street, bricks and all kinds of shit being flying down the street. And I don't know what this explosion was because I turned, I took 2 steps and then you hear an explosion. You're not like, hey, what just happened? You're just running, And I run around the corner of a building and that engine flew 5 blocks away and smashed down in the fucking sidewalk across the street from me as I got around the corner of a building. It flew over my head and it hit, I don't know if it hit this woman. She was an older black woman. I remember being in a royal blue dress laying face down. I don't know if this thing landed next to her, and she had a heart attack. I don't know if it hit her. I mean, she was a couple feet from the fucking thing, but within seconds, I'm trying to dial 911, right? I got 911 into my phone at a full sprint across the fucking New York City block. I'm running towards this woman to see like what the fuck happened. And before I can get the third number in my phone, FBI is on the scene. They grab this woman, they fire her into a minivan, and they sequester the scene. I'm telling you seconds. Seconds after the explosion that happened 44 floors up in the air 5 blocks away. So
how in the hell?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, all kinds of law enforcement were out, 10, 12, 15 minutes, whatever had passed already.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Maybe they're in coordinated, like, we got to get so many blocks out. And I don't know. But it was all, like, wild to me.
Yeah.
I was
Pretty
like,
quick.
what the fuck? And I was just, I'm looking at the engine. The engine's 5 feet high, 4 or 5 feet high, 3.5, maybe 4.5 feet in diameter, thousands of pounds. And this thing was shot fucking
5 blocks.
5 blocks, I mean, what do they weigh? Several thousand pounds, So, and I wound up walking, I walked up 6th Avenue up to 14th. Girlfriend at the time were in the basement of her sandwich shop because they've shut down Manhattan. Can't get out. Can't go anywhere. Bridges are closed. Ferries are closed. Tunnels are closed. Can't leave the island. So I remember we're watching on some little TV down in the basement, and they said that South Tower was coming down. So it was the second tower hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching the second tower crumble in the distance. I'm 30 blocks away or whatever at this point, but it's a straight shot down 6th Avenue that I'm watching. And I can see the tower falling.
No shit.
And I'm like a piece of you died. A piece of me died.
Yeah.
So, and I connected with my buddy, and he says he just found out that they were running ferries out of Chelsea Piers to get back to Jersey. He lived in Jersey. He's like, come meet us at Chelsea Piers. We can get in the queue and, we can at least get back to Jersey to get out of the city. So standing at Chelsea Piers, waiting to get on the ferry. And I'm on the ferry. We're on the Hudson. And as you're kind of like, I mean, the Trade Center's right there,
You got a front row seat.
And then the North Tower was coming down while I was on the ferry. And I literally felt like I could put my hand out and have it fall through my fingers. Like that's how close it felt, even though you're not that close.
Yeah.
But it was a heartbreak because whenever I'm from upstate New York, and so I'd go home, visit people or whatever, and when you come home, like the first thing I'm looking for is Statue of Liberty and the Trade Center. Those are gone. The Trade Center's gone.
Yep.
So like 2 or 3 days, I think it was, maybe 2, possibly 3, trying to figure out how to go back. I want to go back there, and, I had a buddy that lived down in Alphabet City, which is like below 14th Street,
Okay.
above Houston kind of area. And, you couldn't get to lower Manhattan. Like below 14th, you had to live there, but below Houston, you couldn't go.
Okay.
So he lived on like 3rd or something. So we were at least able to get to Alphabet City. And then we snuck down through Battery Park. It's a ghost town. There's all these apartment buildings. There's no one there because it can't be there. And you're walking through piles of ash. I mean, I'm realistic that I'm walking through dead bodies here. These are people that are incinerated here. And you could see like papers that came off of somebody's desk and this and that. I mean, seeing all kinds of shit. You know, it's all blown out all over the fucking place. And we got just about up to Battery Tunnel, which is a couple blocks away from Ground Zero. And there's a National Guard perimeter up. And I'm watching all these guardsmen walking out with black bags, you know, body parts, obviously. And I went up to the soldier at the barricade,
like the checkpoint.
Yeah, and I said, hey man, I was in this building. I want to help. I want to volunteer. I was like, I'm well suited for this. I can cut with a torch. I worked in a cemetery. I do construction. You know, I go through them like I'm rattling off all this stuff. I'm like, I'm the right guy to be in here. You know, I've done hazmat work, asbestos abatement. I understand respiration, all this stuff. You know, I'm just like anything to get me in there. And the guy looked at me, man. He had such a sad, sorrowful look in his face, and he said, "Man, go home. Go home. Go be with your family." He's like, "We got so many volunteers. We can't even organize them." He's like, just go home. There's nothing you can do.
That's got to be a weird feeling.
Survivor's guilt, you know, kind of thing. You know, like I just wanted to help.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing. It was weird in the sense of like, I felt like I was really suited for that, right? But also, again, like it's a blessing I didn't go there.
The asbestos, the chemicals,
all of it, man,
that went into that.
I had a friend. I brought this to show you my buddy's coin. He worked on the pile doing search and rescue. I think he said he got there September 12th. And he said him and his guys, again, platoon, battalion, unit, whatever it is. Yeah. I think they're called the WMDs, the weapons of mass destruction kind of thing. Shout out to Sweaty. He said that he got his guys, got them all suited up. Now, he got them suited up in the SCBA, you know, because a paper mask can't do the same thing as a half-face respirator, and a half-face respirator can't do the same thing as supplied air, you know? And it depends on a lot of criteria. And one is like exposure, like particulate exposure, and what that is, the concentration of it in the area you're working in.
Yep.
So he knows that this is the amount of chemicals, the amount of this, the amount of asbestos, and all the stuff. So he has his guys all suited up in SCBA and supplied air and stuff. And they go out to the pile and they run up to the commander and like, "We're ready to do our, put us in, coach." And he looks at me, he says, "What the fuck are you doing?" He said, "Go get that shit off. Go get a half-face respirator on. You're going to freak everyone out here. You can't be out here in this." Even though knowing that's the gear they should have been in. So my buddy said they worked all night on the pile. Next morning, whatever, 6 in the morning, whatever it was, they're all covered in dust and everything all dusted out. And he went and sat down with one of his commanders or whatever, and the guy's chain smoking, 5 packs of cigarettes at once or whatever. And Sweaty blows his nose and nothing but blood comes out. And he said, he looks over at his guy and he said, "Give me one of those cigarettes. It's going to be a long, long night." He's told me that most of the guys from his unit has since then had some sort of bladder cancer or stomach cancer because they were exposed to something that even if they were in supplied air, the risk of being exposed is still very high. For sure. Right? If you don't get a good seal, any number of things could happen. So, but the fact that these guys were sent in there specifically underprepared,
on purpose,
purpose, right? For optics, right?
All for show,
right? So,
God, that's the military though. That's the whole those are the things that drive me nuts. Like, you knowingly know that this what is going on, what's in the air, the chemical, everything that goes into it, but you don't want to freak people out. But you're willing to put your whole platoon at risk for God knows what. Same with the firefighters and every first responders, everybody involved. It was all just like some dog and pony to like don't want to scare people. Like you're.
Well, look at the not to cut you off.
Yeah.
Christine Whitman, I think she was the governor of Jersey at the time, or head of the EPA, some shit. She told people, don't worry about this cloud that's floating over the city.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got silica and it's got all kinds of shit, chemicals, all this stuff. Don't worry about it. You don't need a mask. Get a mask. Don't get a mask. It doesn't matter. It's like you knowingly are telling people, don't worry about protecting yourself because they don't want to alarm anyone. That, so often, and I've seen it more at 53, man, and again, the life I've lived and things that it's like, don't treat me like a fucking child. Mm-mm. Don't tell me that I can't buy cigarettes, but I can go and murder in another country for you so that you can fill your coffers up. Don't treat me like a child.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that I don't, the same when the anthrax thing happened, they're telling you to go out and buy plastic and duct tape, but they're not telling you how to build a hermetically sealed fucking decontamination unit. Just bring your mail inside, make sure your windows are taped up. It's like, you're not helping people. You're not. You don't give a fuck about helping people. That's not what you're doing.
But then they'll say, "Well, we're trying to avoid mass panic and blah blah blah."
Look, we need a culling of the herd.
Yeah.
As sad as it is, and they say God's plan is better than ours. So you got to have hope in that, I guess.
Time will tell.
But when you have, I had 200 people standing in front of me that wouldn't help themselves, that they would have perished more than likely. They might not have left those doors for all I fucking know. Maybe they would have. I don't know. But they weren't, and they didn't when I was there. No one walked out those doors. You had 200 people in a fucking hallway, and not one of them walked up to a door to see that it's unlocked, to open it, to see is there some way to get out of here.
Not one bit of initiative.
So, you could flash forward now through the COVID stuff. They're telling you people are dropping dead in the streets, but you're not seeing that.
Yep.
You turned on your neighbors, turned on your friends, you turned on your families. That day changed me in ways I could never imagine. Just like I was telling, when you go from pre-18 years old confronting your uncle to now you're in this new normal. Another moment where divine intervention put me in a place, that I'm never in the city in the morning. This is it wasn't like some random like, woo, you're always in the city. Of course the chances are greater. It's like, I'm never in the city in the morning because I work in Jersey in the morning. And then at night I'm, so.
Did the moment, I know you didn't think of it then. Did you ever reflect and look back on watching those 200 people just not even make a decision to get out of there and you doing that? Did that ever like wake you up to how humans can be so easily just frozen in fear or not even to think like, hey, let's push this door open to see if it's even unlocked? Did you ever like reflect on that moment where you making that initial movement and getting the flow going got those people out of there?
It's such an interesting question because I've seen lots of therapists in my life, as you can imagine, and thankfully I have. And I went to a guy, he was an ex-Marine. He's a therapist. And I'm like, man, I've had a crazy life, man. I need somebody to help me like fucking rein it in,
Sure.
And so he's talking to me and he asked me that question. And I said, he said, what do you think about in that moment? And I said, I feel like when I think about those 200 people standing there, I'm awash in a crushing sadness that so many people stood frozen, unable to help themselves. And all they had to do was walk out a door. All they had to do was make sure to look up and walk out a door. And he said to me, he said, you know what I hear? He said, I hear that you're a hero. And I was like, I don't feel like a hero.
But if you weren't there that day.
I don't feel that, you know. Yeah. But I do think about it. But I don't have that sadness anymore. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, and I told you this would circle back when we were talking earlier. He said, everything in your life prepared you for that moment. He said, everything that you lived through and everything that you dealt with. And he said, in that moment when everyone was frozen in a panic and in fear, you weren't. You just decisively moved. You calculated what needed to be done, and you did it. And I had never thought of the burdens of my childhood and my early life and that in a positive way until that moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought like, man, I survived this stuff, and you know, what I've been able to survive, you know, maybe it can help someone else survive it or survive something similar or get through whatever the thing that they're doing, you know. But I never thought of it in a way where what a gift God gave me
to be able
to bear the suffering that I've gone through, so that in a moment when it mattered, I was able to help. I was able to not be the one to let everyone perish, to not be the one that couldn't help or do that. And that was the first time. It was the first and only time I had ever really thought of that burden of suffering being something positive, you know. And it doesn't change the fact that all the lies and that have come from that day now too, that we know 20-something years later, sure. You know, but I hope, you know, it's, I hope that in those lives that maybe I helped, you know, maybe save them. I don't know, that they were able to do something with their lives, that they paid it forward somehow for other people too, you know.
It's probably very interesting to think back of how you've been able to survive or thrive in chaos through your whole life for that moment that potentially led to you being able to save 200 people's lives just by you being like, door, glass, okay, fire, and just being able to process, you know, and that it's like the fog of war, you know, everybody sees things differently and everything's, you could ask those 200 people this, and they would all, you'd have 200 different stories.
Absolutely.
But the fact that of all those people just standing at a doorway, frozen, like deer in a headlight, and you're behind them like, no, like, got to get out of here. What's my next move? Okay, get to the door. Where are we at? And then to be able to process that's not just something I feel most people aren't born with. That's something that's created, for the other people, shows you that most people go through their whole entire life and never have to be put in a stressful situation an environment, or to be able to think under stress, and then you just go through our cubicles and we do our 9 to 5 and we're stressed out because the memo didn't come in time or whatever it may be.
GPS report.
Yeah, right. With my stapler. And so exactly.
Right.
And then when you get put in these situations and people freeze, and that's a huge lesson for me that I've learned. Like my kids have seen it several times. We've been in situations as a family and I'm like, bing, 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 gone, move, do not stop, get out. Like there's our door, go. You know, those things, not anything crazy. We've had actually a couple of near-death experiences as a family, because we're on the road a lot, and we've been in some situations where it was like I never even hesitated, and it got us out of there, and my whole family's like, holy shit. But that's what I always teach my kids, and my wife and I are very big on raising our kids under pressure for certain situations. This is why I think it's great for kids to be in sports, combat sports, things like that, because it doesn't seem like a lot when you're younger, when you're stepping into a mat and into a ring as a child and you're competing and you're fighting, and then it becomes normal. When you would take a normal kid off the street and put him, or talking in front of a crowd of people, it's the fact that you are able to process, which most people just boom, shut down, shut it off. I'm just going to go with the herd.
Right.
What's everybody else doing? You could ask my whole family. What's everybody else doing? Dad's going to be going,
right.
I'm slipping out the back door,
Exactly
because
right.
wherever everybody else is, like, okay, if they haven't figured it out, that's not my solution.
Right.
So that's why I asked that question, because that's how my mind worked. If I would have scanned everything and be like, that's my only option. When you were saying there was nothing that was going to stop you,
right.
that's how my family has it ingrained. If there's ever a situation, there's not going to be anybody or anything that stops me from getting my family out of a situation or off the X, which, military terms, anything bad. There's nothing. When you were saying that, I was like, fuck, finally. Like, you don't run into many people who are like, I am doing whatever it takes to get out of this building. And
and you're exactly right. So many people, and look, it's so funny, man. When I lived in California, don't hold it against me, but
I had to do my stint.
I met my buddy who's taught me everything about carpentry I know. He's wildly talented, amazing guy, very devout Christian. Just he's like an older brother to me, and he'd tell me, we'd be chopping it up, just John or whatever, and I'd tell him some stories from my childhood, and he'd be like, "No way is that real?"
Yeah.
I tell him some stuff, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "I got 1,000 of these stories for you, bro." Yeah. And he's like, I've never known anyone to even deal with a fraction of what, let alone like the amount, or whatever. And I think that's how a lot of people are. It's that it's what's so strange now with like the social media stuff is that some version of some reality is being shown to you, right? But if you've never been anywhere, you've never been around different people or whatever, and you just think everyone's the same. No, twins aren't the same. No one is the fucking same.
Nothing is the same.
And then when you start getting into cultures and these things diverge in very wild and different ways that so many people it's just people. It's like these people want you dead. They want you fucking dead. Mm-hmm. They don't care. They don't share your morality. They don't share your ethics. And in any reality, you are dead. Given they get the option, and that's just how it is.
Back on them for 1 second,
right?
That's what I've traveled the world and been very fortunate to be able to go to some pretty shithole places and some really pretty cool places. But one thing that I see on social, and you bringing this up, is guests will tell stories, and then you get the cap, never happened, bullshit, does it? And I'm over here hearing, guest stories, and I'm like, oh, fuck, dude, that's happened to me. I have a buddy that's happened to. So I can relate because I don't want to say I'm this world traveler or whatever, but I have a book of adventures, stories, shit that has happened, things that I've gotten away with. Yeah, I should one day. Yeah. And so I just got to make sure the statute of limitations are all expired. And so
change the names.
Yeah, right. So I've been able to see and deal and handle some wild shit. But then when these guests will say, like a buddy of mine was a correctional officer, came out and was telling stories, then people are messaging me like, bro, I was there for that. Oh my God, dude, that was so right. And then there are all the comments, no fucking way. This would never happen. Bullshit. This would never. And I'm just like, man, what life have you lived to never think anything like this would ever happen?
Well, let me add on to that and put it in context of the 9/11 thing. So I have a buddy of mine that I've been friends with we were friends since we were teenagers, 15-ish years old, 16, whatever. And so he's known me my whole life. Several years ago, we're talking, and he goes, man, I got to tell you, I don't think planes hit those buildings, man. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, I don't think planes hit those buildings. I've been watching these YouTube videos. I said, what? I said, YouTube videos? I said, what the fuck are you talking about? He goes, yeah, it's like there was like a hologram or this or that. I was like, bro, I said, you've known me for over 30 years. I said, so either you think I'm a fucking liar or you think I don't know what I seen with my own eyes. Okay? I seen a plane, and then I was almost hit by an engine of a plane. So you got to...
But did you see a plane hit the building?
No. No, I didn't.
I'm not a hologram guy. I see what you're saying, but I'm just asking the question.
But the thing is that was a very stark wake-up call, because this was several years ago.
For sure.
That here's somebody that knows me not to be a liar, knows me not to be like some fucking making bullshit up guy. And even though he knows me personally, he still doubts what an actual fucking eyewitness that he knows and trusts tells him, because of some fucking video made in a basement by some kid or whoever.
Yeah. You can see it's a green screen, and they automatically believe it.
And so this is the danger where social media and this stuff, and that was several years ago. Now, like the deep fake, cheap fakes, all this shit, this AI stuff, we're moving into a world where people are no longer going to know what's real anymore.
Yeah.
If you're not talking to real people and you're not out doing real shit, you're not going to really know what's going on.
There's going to be a whole generation. Your kids, that whole generation, for sure. She's old enough to see it, but like our youngest, she'll show me stuff. Dad, look at this. And I'm like, it's AI. She's like, that got me. And I'm like, and then we feel bad. And she made the comment. Our youngest made the comment a month or two ago. She goes, you know what sucks, Dad? I'm like, what? She goes, I don't even know it's real anymore. And it crushed me. And I'm like, damn, we're here.
Trees are real. The river's real. Mountains are real.
Outside is real.
The thing is that they've done a really good job of like cleaving a bunch of people away from, the herd, right? And they've taken, what is it, neuroscientists, neuropsychologists, there's like 80-20, divergence in thinking or whatever. Well, that 20% also has an 80-20.
Yep.
And it breaks down even lower and lower and lower, and that's why you wind up with weird groups. These guys, I'm with this guy, but you guys think different things here. Yeah, but we agree on this other thing. It's become a really useful tool for divide and conquer, and it's an old tactic, thousands of years.
Yep.
They've been running divide and conquer, and it's wild to me. I hadn't been political up until this point, up until 9/11. I didn't pay attention to politics. I did a bunch of fucking jerk-offs stealing money from me, or stealing money from our country, embezzling money, doing dirty shit. It's like CIA, FBI, I don't know. I think they're probably all fucking scum. You know what I mean? 100%. But then all of a sudden I got a buddy, he's in the FBI, and he's an amazing guy. I'm like, well, maybe they can't be all scum because he's not a scumbag, But the thing is that the world's a complicated place, right? And all this like geopolitical stuff now that we've been forced into like paying attention to, which we should, we should. You got to know what's going on, the West is the West is the people that fucking abolished slavery. The West are the people that fucking fought the Nazis, but somehow we're Nazis and we're racist now. It's like. Sense. These things have to be pushed back against, and the strange thing, like the 9/11 thing, that was always felt really weird to me. And what you're holding there, just so your guests know, I had a friend, her brother died in the Trade Center. He was on the 106th floor, Sean Rooney. And he was above the impact zone of the North Tower. He couldn't get out. And he was talking to his wife on the phone, telling her where he's at. I'm in the office. I can't get out. She's like, just stay there. They're coming to get you or whatever. And he's like, tell the kids I love them. And he rode the building into the ground with his wife on the phone. Tell the kids I love them. She was a very staunch advocate for victims' rights of 9/11. And she was a huge thorn in the side of the government, because she wouldn't let it go. Her husband's dead, right? She sees all this bullshit. She's then killed in a plane crash after she had met with maybe Obama or so. I forget who it was. Just day or two after, outside of Buffalo, New York, in Clarence. plane crashes, she's dead. Now, is it a coincidence? You got 2 people killed in plane crashes, and
I don't believe in coincidence.
You know, the amount of coincidences that surround 9/11 are wild, right? So those buildings are 110 stories tall. Mm-hmm. They want you to believe that 210-story buildings on a fluke, first one hit through the 80th floor, magic jet fuel caused desks to burn. I mean, I worked on these skyscrapers, man. We're pouring 650, 700 yards of concrete a day per floor. Reinforced concrete, welded steel girders, all this stuff, fire protection, all this stuff. And they want you to believe that this building pancaked into its own footprint on a fluke. And then the second building, the whole corner of the building, another 110-story building, whole corner of the building taken out. The kinetic force, alone, also with the idea that this several 1,000-pound engine flew 6-7 blocks away, that building also pancaked into its own footprint, same way, right? They want you to believe that a building that wasn't hit by anything, at most maybe paperweights flying off a desk or some burning paper landing on its roof, they want you to believe that Building 7 collapsed into its own footprint.
Hours later?
Just days later, just on its own. Again.
Was it days later?
I think it was days. You know, I've demoed 6-story buildings. Nothing crazy, but still 6 floors.
Yeah.
But months of effort went into like making sure that building's falling into its own footprint. You got 210-story buildings falling into their own footprint. You got another building collapsing into its own footprint. Looks like controlled demolition, but they want you to believe that Manhattan's built like a house of cards, and this building's foundation shook that building, and this, it's like, it's hard for me to believe because I've worked on these buildings. I didn't work on the Trade Center, but I've worked on skyscrapers. Like I said, I worked on the Goldman Sachs building. And what you're talking about, for everything that you see above the ground in New York, of like these fucking structures going into the air, you got you almost equal that going in down into the bedrock of the island. For sure. With fucking reinforced concrete and all this. So it's like, there's a lot of fantastical things that surround that day. Our president stood on the news and said, we're going to go to the places that harbor terrorists and promote terrorism. It's like, all right, well, 14 or 15 of these guys are Saudi Arabians, but we're going to go to Afghanistan and Iraq. It's like, where did that sleight of hand, like magic shit happen?
Yeah, because then they shifted it to Muslims.
Right. So
what
crazy
you're holding to me, though. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, what you're holding there is a piece of the Trade Center. So my buddy Sweaty, who gave me the coin, he's working on the pile doing search and rescue, and he told me this story. He gave that to me. He came out to a show I was playing in Rochester, and he was singing for a band called Moment of Truth, and he's still in the military from what I know, and he gives me this stone, and he says, I want you to have this. He said, it saved my life.
Damn.
And I said, why are you giving this to me? He goes, you should have it. And he told me, he said, he's working on the pile doing search and rescue before Building 7 comes down. And they said, the building's coming down. Evacuate the pile. And then the building starts coming down. He takes off running, and he trips over this fucking piece of stone. And as he falls, where he fell, he falls flat down, and a piece of concrete and rebar flies over where he would have been standing had he not tripped and fell, and wrapped around like a post or a pole or some shit. He's like, it would have killed me.
All because of this?
Because of that. So, and this candle holder that you're showing, so my friend that, I told you her brother passed away in the Trade Center, Sean Rooney. A year later, I think it was maybe a year after or 2 years after, every year on 9/11, they'd have the victims' families come to New York City, and and so they gave them that, and it's debris, it's soil and that from the Trade Center site, so you can see there's like some
there's bolts and
nails and different things in there. Something happened that day that changed the world forever, but changed our country forever.
For sure.
Because they took our privacy away. They told us we gotta take your rights away so that we could protect you from these other people. Done all these things. They want you to believe that a plane vaporized in a field in Pennsylvania. They told you this heart-wrenching story about how these people have phone calls with their loved ones on a plane telling them we're going to roll on these guys on an analog phone system on a plane traveling at erratic speeds, at erratic elevation changes. This is back then. Not today.
That's always my question, and nobody ever talks about it. You mean to tell me the whole plane full of Americans, not one motherfucker stood up and was like, no, not going to happen.
They're telling you this plane vaporized.
Yeah. Well,
there's no, the wreck. I mean, you look at the site, there's no luggage. There's no tires. There's no fuselage. There's no bodies. There's no seats. Look at every plane crash in the fucking world. Yeah. Planes don't vaporize, right? So there's that. And then again, these are just things about 9/11 that I think people should think about, right? I don't have any answers. I don't know what happened that day, but I do know that the amount of coincidences that had to take place in order for that to happen don't happen in reality.
How do you have a group full of Israel natives on video chanting and filming everything, and then the cops stopped them and questioned them across the harbor, and they said they were here to capture the moment? Like, how did they know about it? All documented, right? Like, it's
wild, man.
It is. It's insane to me, and I bought into it. That's why I joined the military.
Of course,
right?
But how could you not? I mean, you blood for blood, man.
100%.
You know what I mean? It's like, you want to punch me in the face? Fine, I'll fucking chop your arms off.
We're gonna go fight these dudes, and I'm a New Yorker, and I'm gonna I'm signing this dotted line. Like, where do I sign?
Yeah.
And then now we look at it, and I'm like, God, like, none of this makes sense. None of it. You're telling me, like, the steel beams that are like melted. You're telling me jet fuel did that?
I'll tell you something. Immediately after, back then, every year I would torture myself and I'd watch every fucking thing, everything on 9/11. Anything they put out, military channel, history channel, learning channel, this channel, the science channel, this channel, that channel. But the amount of propaganda was wild to me, because what I started to notice is, like, look at this graphic. We made a graphic and it's animated plane, and look, that's exactly how it happened. And then I'd see them running bullshit fucking experiments. I remember one, I don't know if it was on the learning channel or science channel or whatever. And I'm watching, and they're like, okay, we're going to show you how the jet fuel melted these beams and pancaked this building into its own footprint. And I'm like, okay,
please enlighten me.
So they're out in the desert. They got a big pit. They fill it. It's filled with jet fuel. They take like some 6-inch like aluminum fucking I-beam, like put it over this pit, and they light it ablaze, and they're like, look at it go. And we're going to watch this beam crumble under this, and nothing. And I think it was aluminum. I could be mistaken on that. But anyway, they got this thing going. Nothing's happening to the beam. And then they're like, well, we need to add some weight to it. And then they go and put some weight in the middle of the beam. And it's like, bro, you're not even talking about the same materials here.
No.
I mean, the fucking beams that they use to make these buildings are not like little 6-inch I-beams.
No.
That's not what's going on. No. You know what I mean? They're not, you don't have it encased in concrete. You don't have it wrapped in asbestos. You don't have all this other shit going on. You just got some fucking bullshit beam over a pit of who the fuck knows what it is, trying to make some false equivalence of what you're trying to explain what happened.
Well, that's what people don't understand. If you stripped everything out to the bones, that's the majority of the floors, everything. The only thing that's really flammable, I would say, would be tiles, the
top ceilings and fucking desks,
wiring harness, wiring and the harnesses and the desks and the carpet on the floor, even underneath that solid concrete,
and your reams of paper,
whatever you brought in that you belong to, that's all that was burnt. The building was not flammable. Like, you're talking pure concrete and steel.
Well, what gets wild, and obviously I'm sure I'm not the only one who went down the rabbit hole of, like, this conspiracy and that conspiracy and all this stuff. But, there is no denying the fact that the Empire State Building was hit in the 40s or 50s by an airplane.
Yeah.
These buildings were built in the 70s with the idea that we had jetliners now, you know, and a plane impact is a real possibility.
Yep.
There were structural things that went into these buildings. And again, I'm not saying I know even a fucking fraction of what happened. I know a country went into trillions of dollars of debt. I know that we sowed chaos throughout the Middle East. All of it, I get it. And if these motherfuckers did it, then fucking turn the Middle East into a fucking glass parking lot.
Yep.
I don't care.
Yep.
But I just don't believe what they've told me.
No, I don't either.
If you told me that these buildings, hey, you know, when we build these high skyscrapers, we have, you know, thermite packs built in case there's a collapse and we got to bring it to the ground. We got to set them off and we do that. Then fucking tell me that. Mm-hmm. But what you're telling me didn't happen, right? What you're telling me, you know, you want me to believe that in one of the most heavily trafficked international tourist cities in our country, fucking Washington, D.C., that you can't find a fucking stitch of photographic or videographic evidence or a fucking eyewitness to tell you they seen a plane flying through D.C.? You got people from every continent with every fucking piece of advanced equipment of photographic and videographic
From
technology.
the 70s.
Back then, you know, I mean, it's just, again, the absurdity. And you go back and look at the footage at the Pentagon,
It's
and it's like, okay, I got two buildings that I seen that had a fucking wing impact from a jetliner, but now I got a little hole in a building. And there's a whole big show going on. There's a big spool of industrial wire, and there's fire, and there's people running around and whatever. But, man, I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of shenanigans and bullshit that they've wanted us to believe. And they tugged at our heartstrings and they at our patriotism and whatever. You know, and the thing is that, you know, is it Benjamin Franklin that said, you know, now after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, he said, now that you have liberty, let's see how long you can hold on to it. Our country's 250 years old, man.
Yeah, it's time.
You know, and the thing is that I don't understand that in this day and age, after, you know, I witnessed the worst terroristic attack, so-called, if our government had something to do with some part of it, they must have
narrative, yeah.
Whatever, right? That today you're telling me we got a communist Muslim mayor as the mayor of New York City. You got people saying they're socialists and this country has to decide what its identity is.
For sure.
You know, and there's a lot of brain dead people, and I'm not knocking them, because most people want to get up, they want to drink their fucking coffee, they go to work, they do their toil for 8 to 10 hours, whatever it is. They come home, they have a beer, sit on the porch, maybe play with their kid, fucking pat them on the ass, have their dinner, fall asleep in their chair, and that's every day for them. And I get it, because life is hard. In the best of times, your time is short. Mm-hmm. Life is hard. You know, so if you now you're being asked to think about things that are so beyond your scope of understanding. Because I don't know what's going on in Ukraine. And I don't know who the fuck the Palestinians are and Somalians and these people. Because I live in fucking Cleveland, Ohio.
Yep.
And I just like to be able to take my kid to the park and have him play on swings and not worry about getting fucking stabbed or shot.
Yeah.
But see, your life has to be worth protecting, right? And the minute you're not protecting it, somebody will take it from you. Somebody will take your country from you. There are countries out there that don't share our morals. They don't share our ethics. They don't share our optimism. You know, is it a perfect place? No, it's not a perfect place. Is capitalism a perfect solution? Maybe not. But it's better than what anything else we've seen so far. You know, so when I hear like somebody, I'm a socialist, then go live in a socialist country. You're a communist, go live in a communist country. Because I have friends that escaped the Soviet Union after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Armenian friends, you know, Vances. And, you know, they tell me, you know, when that happened and there was no food, here's your ticket, go get your fucking pound of meat for the week or whatever. But there's no food there because they're selling it out the back door because their families are starving. You're paying Russian mafia to fucking get you out of the country and they're just stealing your money. Mm-hmm. You know, these people, you know, my immigrant friends that I've talked to, they're like, this is communism. I lived through it. I know what it looks like, and this is it. These are the things they do. They take your music from you. They take your communication from you. They shut down your speech. They do these things. That's how they implement the fucking takeover.
Yep.
You know?
Which has been slowly happening here forever.
And so, you know, these people, man, that are bottom feeders, they're fucking lazy, whatever it is, you know, I get it. You're in the go along to get along gang because, you know, fucking life is hard. But when somebody is a fucking IQ problem, or they have a fucking perception problem, or they think no one's illegal, well, that's not how the real world works. Because there ain't a country I can go and post up and just fucking, hey, I'm in Russia. I'm here.
Yeah.
You got to deal with me now.
Give me free Medicare.
Yeah.
I need free
how I'm
housing.
being dealt with? I'm being sent to fucking Siberia or shot in the fucking street. They ain't having it.
No.
You know, and so all these years after 9/11 and all these guys that, like yourself, you know, and again, thank you for your service, man.
Thank you.
And all your brothers that took up arms to fucking feel like they're protecting their loved ones and their country and their family. You know, this is the most precious resource, as I said, is somebody willing to do that.
Yeah.
And to have like these bureaucrats and these fucking politicians and these fucking NGOs that squander that just for what?
Their kids aren't.
So they can get no, they don't have to. They don't have to follow the rules they set. Oh. They don't have to follow the law. You know, and the thing is that, you know, the world is always coming for you. And I don't know if you ever played the game Risk when you were a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
I sucked at it. I wasn't a strategic thinker in that way. I had a buddy, my buddy was in the Navy. You know, he killed me all the time. You know, he's just like, he was all about it. And I was just like, this shit sucks.
Yeah.
But when you start thinking about the world and that this is how the world was formed. Mm-hmm. People conquered places. They took places over. They did these things. You go and look at Genghis Khan. You can go look at Alexander the Great. You can go look through time. You know, the Persian Empire, the Ottomans. I mean, it's like endless. You know, and, you know, so when you fast forward to today and these people want to impose some sort of like moral and ethical thing over you to say like you should have this toxic empathy that, you know, well, you should just go without because, you know, somebody's got to. Nah, man, I don't want to go without. You go without. I don't want to go without privacy. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go without wondering if I could take my kid to the park or if I say something because somebody's a fucking savage and I fucking tune him up. I'm going to jail because I don't need to call the police to protect myself. So we got a lot of cowards that have been handed over power.
Yep.
And they think that they wield that power with absolution over us. And so in the same way with the COVID stuff, that should have opened a lot of people's eyes. You know, I had a conversation with a guy, a black attorney in LA. And I say black because it's relevant in this situation. Mm-hmm. My wife and I were like, I'm doing carpentry and I work for billionaires when I'm there. My buddy, all the work we do, they're billionaires. Okay. We're working on 30, 40, $100 million homes. Okay. It's a different world. Mm-hmm. And all through COVID, we never stopped working.
Yep.
And all through COVID, they're fucking illegal immigrant maids riding the fucking bus, the city bus for 3.5 hours to come from East LA to fucking Malibu. They didn't give a fuck. They had these people coming to houses that they didn't live in to go and continue to work. Mm-hmm. So I'm having this conversation with this guy at my buddy's bar. He's a part owner of a bar in Hollywood. And I'm talking to the guy, and I said to the attorney, I was like, I don't understand how every black or Jewish citizen in this city isn't burning this fucking place to the ground right now. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, what do I mean? I said, what I'm seeing is that the mayor of the largest city in the fucking country just put legalized discrimination back on the law books based on people's personal medical choices. I said, so that seems a little wild to me. And he goes, oh, well, I support it. I was like, you support what? I was like, you're an attorney and you're black. I was like, what about the Tuskegee experiments and all these different things? I was like, we got international law that's supposed to protect the citizens of a country from being experimented on from their own fucking government, unbeknownst, you know? And he goes, what's international law? That doesn't mean anything. Oh, okay. And I'm like, and in that moment, I was like, so you're not black enough to give a fuck, and you're just enough of an attorney to know, like, where your bread is buttered.
Yep.
And it was like, you get to dip your toe in and figure out, well, where you want to be. And to me, it's like, I don't think of the world that way, man. I think that, you know, your principles and your morals and your ethics, they're not, they can't be so easily bought. They can't be so easily interchangeable.
But they are, and especially nowadays with wanting to be an influencer, with wanting to have a voice and a face or to be somebody. And that's where it's
Get
wild.
your name in the phone book, like Steve Martin in The Jerk, and you could be somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
it's insane to me, and I'm with you because I watch how a lot of people. COVID showed us a lot about who your neighbor is, and, you know. And we didn't buy it for not even a millisecond in this house. Like, I was like, hey, things are gonna get stupid. Let's get ready. Just get some supplies because who knows how bad it's gonna get.
right.
But as far as the shot and shit, I didn't buy into that because I've been around the world. I've seen natural disasters and what happens and when they're dealing with bodies, and how when you have this huge increase in bodies, there's nobody. We're not building cities to deal with thousands or even hundreds and hundreds of dead bodies that are happening every day, right? So and that's when the wife's like, "Well, how do you know?" And I was like, with how much technology, everybody's got a phone. There would be videos of piles of people behind morgues in the streets. Like, it gets to a point which they're making it seem like there's thousands of people dying from this. I'm like, where are the bodies? That was my biggest thing. Where are the bodies? And I was like, I'm not buying any of this. And, but it just shows like how we're so easily, like, people will give up everything, their morals, their values, principles, what they stand on, for just a little bit of fame, a little bit of power, a little bit of money, and they'll sell themselves.
It's also their fears.
100%.
So, you know,
Fear is a huge one. Fear controls. I learned that overseas. These people, what they would do to other people just out of fear for their family.
I had a friend years back. We're talking. I love him dearly. Very close friend still to this day. Musician, traveled the world, played all the big stages with all the big guys. He's a very well-known guy.
Yeah.
And we're talking, and he says, and this is maybe five-ish years after 9/11 happened. And he says, maybe it was 2000, maybe 2008 or somewhere around there when we're talking. And we're talking about taxes and whatever. And I said, now mind you, I had to fly 1 week after 9/11. I was out on tour.
Okay.
And so I was teching for my buddy's band. And so I got on a plane a week later to fucking fly out to Sacramento to do the smoke out with, like, it was Cypress Hill and Deftones.
Okay. Yeah.
And I get on the plane. I got box cutters. I got fucking wrenches. I got all kinds of shit. I forgot they were in my bag. I just got on the plane. You know, I'm like, so we're sitting there years later. We're talking. My buddy. I said we were talking about taxes. I said, you know, and I don't know if it's still there now because I haven't looked, and I try to avoid flying whenever possible. But I said, do you know that every time you take a plane, you're paying a 9/11 security tax on your fucking for your plane thing, airfare. He goes, well, I don't mind that. I was like, you don't mind that? I was like, don't you want to know where that money goes? I said, because it ain't obviously going to the fucking TSA, because they don't seem like some highly trained crackpot fucking, like, organizations. You know, you got people that are being paid just above minimum wage. You want them to have this highly responsible job. Well, you don't get highly responsible people if you're only paying a minimum wage, because those people are working real jobs. Mm-hmm. So you got a discrepancy here. And I said, so what do you mean you don't? He goes, well, I like being protected by nuclear weapons. I was like, you think that's how it works? You think like, that's not how it works.
You're like, really explain this to me.
You know, but it's that fear thing, you know, it's like when and there's another famous quote where it's like, you give up your liberty for security or something like that. You know, I had a neighbor, they're running a business out of their house in LA. Wife's got a rockin' fucking personal training business. She's probably got 30, 40 fucking people in and out of their house every day through the pandemic, you know? And I'm helping him out one day with some stuff. And he says to me, he goes, did you get the jab? I was like, no. I was like, why would I do that? And he goes, I was like, why did you? He goes, yeah. I was like,
I had to.
I was like, why would you do that? I was like, I'm surprised you even give a fuck about it. I was like, you guys got 30, 40 people in and out of your house every day. You know? I mean, she's literally running a business out of the house, you know? He goes, oh, well, my secretary just said, you know, I'll set you up an appointment or whatever. And I was like, you didn't think about that? And this is a smart guy, right? And I said to him, like, he goes, well, can I ask you why not? I was like, why not? I said, they rammed this through in some emergency thing. I said, one of the companies that never brought a fucking product to market through FDA approval is getting approval for a vaccine that isn't a vaccine. It tells you on their own website that it's a gene therapy that they've turned into a vaccine.
Tested.
So they wanted to do something that they haven't done. And in the verbiage, the way they described it, it was like, it's supposed to create this protein that's similar and should work. It's like similar, should, kind of. It's like you got nothing there with that one. And I said in the other one, they just had a several $billion fucking lawsuit for fucking wrongful death for putting asbestos in their baby powder when we've known asbestos has been bad from the fucking 1800s. And in this modern day, and they just paid out several $1 billion and they got some vaccine. I was like, I said too much crazy shit, man. You know, I said, and here's the other thing, and I'll cap it so that you can, you know, probably, you know, I'm sure you'll have something to say about it. By not buying into it. Leading up, like when it first started, they started telling you people are dropping dead in the streets, blah, blah, blah. If you go back, and anyone can go back and look at this, they bombarded everyone with the fear porn in the first several months of the Spanish flu.
Oh, okay, yep.
Do you know anything about the Spanish flu?
Little, yeah.
What do you know about the Spanish flu?
How bad they claimed that it spread and how it was killing millions of people.
How many millions?
That's the question.
So I'm like, let's find out about the Spanish flu, right? I started doing some research. I'm no forensic researcher, but I did enough, I guess. And they claim that the Spanish flu killed somewhere between 25 and 100 million people.
Where?
Okay. The Spanish flu.
Yeah.
25 and 100 million people. Okay. That's pre-air travel. So now fast forward to the COVID time. You're telling me that you think you got a fucking pathogen loose in the world that's on par with the Spanish flu that culled 100 million people possibly. And you're going to tell me that this state's going to do this and this county's going to do that and this country's going to do... You would shut everything down because everyone would be dead.
Immediately.
No one would be safe. You couldn't have everyone just doing different shit.
Shut down every bridge, every
No one
highway,
would be safe. Again, I work for billionaires where they don't give a fuck. They got their fucking decrepit Mexican maid that can barely walk to come and clean a house that they're not in riding a fucking city bus.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like... It's... Fear is such a wild thing because it, you know, when you let your fears become other people's fears, that you put them on other people, you're telling me that this thing, you got a vaccine for it. It's 100% effective. You're safe. Why do I got to take it? You're safe. Don't worry about me. I said to my neighbor, I said, look, I said, what got me is when they started telling you go out, you're killing your neighbor, blah, blah, blah. I said, look, I got to work. My neighbors don't pay my bills. Okay. So if my neighbor's got a cunt of a immune system that he's concerned with, then my neighbor should ask me to go get his shit because I'll go and get it for him and help him out.
Yeah.
But I can't stay home. I got to work. And if I got work, I'm working. Mm-hmm. So I don't have the option to just like, well, okay, I'll just stay home. So these people, they started twisting things in ways where it was like
fear mongering, big time.
Fear and one thing led to the next. You're in a grocery store and you got a 20-year-old screaming about put your fucking paper mask on. It's like, bro, the mask doesn't do what you want it to do. Go read the box you just took it out of. No matter how bad you want it to do the things you want it to do, it cannot do it. You know, so it's like, but they want you to not know things that you know.
For sure.
They want you to suspend all reality that you know to be true, whether like you're in the military, so you had respiratory training and all these different things. You know, like, your gas mask, it's got to fit and these things. So it's like, when you're being asked to not know things that you know and just like ignore that, and you're just like fucking going for it. What's wild to me is like when you see intelligent people, right? It's one thing you see a rube driving around in his fucking minivan. He's got these double masked, and you know, at first I'd be mad when I see those people, and then I realize like these people are terrified.
I feel bad for them.
Yeah, they're honestly terrified. They don't know how to help themselves. They don't know how to protect themselves. You know, and it's unnerving and it's sad.
Those people scare me the most.
The people that should know better that go along with it, that scares me the most. Because when I'm talking to a capable guy that went through some sort of respiratory protection training and been to war and this and that and whatever, and you're like, where's your mask or whatever. I know people that were like that. It's like,
I had military buddies to pull that shit with me.
I'm like, what happened to your brain?
I thought they were messing with me. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? They're like, dude, you seriously, bro. Like this is, I was in a big group chat and a couple of guys ended up getting booted out of it because they got so radical with it. And I would hit them up on the side, be like, bro, go hit a vape, put your mask on and blow it out.
Yeah.
I'm like, you've never spray painted, dude? I'm like, you've never spray painted with the fucking paper mask on? Or sanded anything? You've never worked with the fuck sanded
you're
fiber?
pulling gold boogers out of your nose
like,
for the next 2 days.
Your whole crease and mouth is cut. Yeah. I'm like, that's going to stop some biological germ? Some virus that's spreading. I'm like, guys, yeah, dude, that from day one, that was that type of shit. But I can walk in this restaurant. You're telling me I'm safe as long as I walk in this restaurant with the mask on. But the second I sit down in this booth that has plexiglass with a gap this big underneath it.
When I'm standing here, the virus is wholly deadly.
That to me.
When I go and sit down, viruses become inert when you're sitting on your ass.
That
Who knew
to
that?
me was like the most
very sciencey.
I really, and I'm trying to be better, especially in my journey with my faith and shit, to not judge people. But it's so hard for me to look back at people that were people that I know, and they're like, "Oh, you know, I had to." I'm like, "The fuck you did? Like, why wouldn't you get vaxxed?" I'm like, "Why wouldn't I get vaxxed? How about it takes decades of testing to come out with a vaccine? It takes decades, and now they have one in a month." And I'm like, "You're putting that in your children?"
Well, the other thing that's wild and I'm not a geneticist. I'm not claiming to be or anything like that. But you know, cells are self-replicating, right? And so you're telling me that you're going to put something in my body that's supposed to shut off after a week or whatever. And, you know, it's like I live in the world every day and I see fucking technology going haywire all the time. You're telling me you ram something through super quick and you're going to, but this is connected to my DNA and that's supposed to shut off. And what if it doesn't? And, you know, I had a friend of mine, his wife is ex-wife is a virologist and worked with immunology or some shit. But anyway, she's like an expert in the field from what I understood, right? Yeah. Thankfully. And I'm talking to, I talked to him, I'd be like, bro, what's going on? He's like, it's all bullshit. Don't, they can't run the tests the way they're doing. They're false positives. You wouldn't do this and that. And he's breaking it all down. And everything that she said was correct. And this woman was interviewed by the military to fucking tell them what was going on. And it's like, when now that we're in a place, in this place and time, right? Because in the place and time when 9/11 was happening, I thought I was at the beginning of World War III. Mm-hmm. When I heard the second plane, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then I hear about this other plane. Then I was like, this is World War III. Yeah. This is where it starts. I was at ground zero of World War III. You're in a moment, in a place and time, right? And historically, you don't know what that is going to be. Mm-hmm. But we've moved through into something very different now.
For sure.
And when you have people that suspend the reality that they know, that they've worked through, you've bloodied your hands to fucking gain the information and knowledge, and then you're like, oh, well, this guy told me this, so I gotta, it's
this
like,
doctor that works for Pfizer told me this.
It's sad, and it's corrupt. The corruption is real, and I don't even want to say it's corny or cliche, or it's just we live in a corrupt world.
I think it's a lot of it's coming to light because now we're in the era of knowledge and you're able to search anything you want at your fingertips.
But knowing something and being able to do something about it are different things, right?
100%. But
and you have to be able to internalize what you are what's capable.
But at least the ball, I'm with you 100%, because most people aren't going to do anything, just like those 200 people standing at the door waiting to die. But at least the ball's rolling where people are waking up to it. That's the first step, where people are like, oh shit, okay, our government, all of our politicians are pedophiles. Okay, all of our money, why am I paying 30% tax on everything, and it's all going to foreign countries and these stinky motherfuckers that are just raping us on everything and taking all of the benefits? Like, at least the conversation's happening more, and it's becoming more topics on things where I'm like, okay, welcome aboard. Like, get ready. You better strap in, because it's only going to get worse from here.
And the thing that, you have in your military background, I don't know what psyops or whatever. I've heard different stories from different guys that, my buddy that was in the Navy, he's like, these are things that we used to do to like places. We'd go to places and do these things.
For sure.
So when COVID was happening, I have a buddy here, amazing guy. He had a friend that worked at the harbor, at the docks in Long Beach during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to fuck these numbers up, but you'll understand. He said pre-COVID, he worked on a crane. So they're unloading the cargo ships, right? Pre-COVID, they'd unload like 4 cargo ships or some shit, he said, in a week. And that was like a good normal week. Mm-hmm. And everyone had their shit, pre-COVID. He said when COVID happened, he said they were unloading more than double the ships that they would normally unload, but no one had anything. He said, we're unloading them. We're loading trucks. Trucks are going somewhere, but no one's, you got no toilet, you got no this, you got no. So it's like, when you tell me that our economy is married to this frenemy country of China or whatever, and it's like during that whole situation, our entire like fucking supply chain is hostage to somebody that is at minimum an adversary, and more than possibly a fucking enemy. Yep. I watched the collapse of the steel industry in upstate New York. I watched the Rust Belt die and rot from the inside because they decided that, back in the day, Fred Jones could work a shitty factory job in Detroit and fucking go and, own a car, maybe 2 cars, take his family on a vacation once a year, and then, and have a little fucking dignity. Yeah. And they decided, fuck Fred Jones and fuck Fred Smith, and we're going to send these jobs to wherever, India, Mexico, China, wherever they went. Mm-hmm. And then you've watched these cities rot from the inside.
Yep. And it's sad, man.
And if you go to like Gary, Indiana, and Detroit, and these different places, I was on a show in Detroit at Harpo's, and you had to be escorted from the bus to the back door, which is of the club, 20 feet by a cop. So because people get stabbed, they're fucking jumped, going 20 feet to the club. It's like these cities and the things that have happened in this country happened when they outsourced all this stuff and decided, fuck these people.
There's no pride anymore. There's no pride in these cities. There's no pride in our cultures here in these towns, and people aren't building things anymore. Nobody has their hand. I built that. I helped do that. There's none of that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's really sad, especially when you go to these old cities that were just thriving. We were, where was Anheuser-Busch? Indianapolis?
That sounds right. Maybe.
Anyways, wherever the Anheuser-Busch, like the OG buildings were, we were doing a photo shoot for a company there, and we were just rolling around. Bro, everything's boarded up. There's like one beautiful hotel downtown that was still open. Everything's graffitied. Everything's boarded up. You can see all the old buildings where they were making all the old Anheuser-Busch, and they got the gargoyles on the corners. And, and it's just ghost town. And I'm driving through with my buddies, and I'm like, fuck, dude. There's an old baseball field right out front of the Anheuser building. And you could tell, like, looks like it's just an old little baseball field. It's like, dude, imagine the games those dudes were playing out there at lunchtime, and just pitching a ball, and the kids, and like the noises and how they were thriving. And it's like, oh, we're going to take this all out of here. And it's like people ask all the time, like, why are some of these other countries so much better off than us? And I'm like, because they're building all their own stuff. They're developing everything. They have their own cultures, and they have so much pride that goes into their towns and cities because they're all involved with it. Now it's like everybody just gets a handout. That's why you can't do anything or trust anybody, because they'll just turn on you in a heartbeat, because it'll just go to the next dollar, or whoever's going to give them the next free shit.
Yeah.
And that's just where they're going to go. And that,
well, and the quality, right? So,
oh, for sure.
To this point that you're making, when I first moved to LA, my buddy, he makes a lot of money, and he's been my friend forever, and I'm the broke musician, fucking scum, and so I'd live with him and pay rent, and he always give me a good break on rent and whatever. So we wound up moving in this place, and it was like maybe 2008, somewhere around there, and these were going to be 1.2 to $2 million or $3 million like loft house apartments, right, to buy condos. And but then the economic crash happens, and so mid building, right, in this building, they've already bought the granite countertops they're in. They already got the Viking or Wolf appliances in there. That's in. But then it's like, well, money's drying up. Now they're going to be apartments. And so they bring in a bunch of illegals to come in and do all the crown and base and all this stuff. And it's like, you got 1/4-inch gaps in these miters, and it's just caulked, and it all looks like shit. And it's like, you got these beautiful granite countertops and this, and then you get all this shit woodwork because they can hire 5 illegal guys for the price of 2 good carpenters, and you're just like, it's like that slow walk towards mediocrity. Back in the day, it was like, have, American pride and, buy American and all, but to buy American, it's like, I wanted to buy an American flag. It's like, I got to hunt to fucking find a company to buy an American flag that's made in America. Right. So,
and it's 4 times the amount,
and it seems wrong. Yeah. But I'll pay it.
Oh, for sure.
So, these things that have happened, and a lot has happened since 9/11, they've incrementally stolen more money from us. They've incrementally divided the country against itself. Do I think that somebody that doesn't understand the world should have the same say as me? No, I don't. Not everyone should be able to vote.
No,
I don't care that that's a controversial thing. Some people are stupid. Some people are willfully ignorant. And some people don't give a shit. Whatever the easiest route is, they will take. And they don't care if they fuck you over. And they don't care if they take from you. And so, the 9/11 thing, another point to that for your listeners to understand and to tell you, some years back, I'm in Nevada at a Stone Sour show, and I'm talking to this guy and his wife, and they're teachers, they're educators. I think he teaches high school, or she teaches high school, and he teaches upper grade school or whatever, but they're, older kids. And we're talking about 9/11, and he says, we've been told not to even teach about it anymore. I said, what? Really? He goes, yeah. He goes, they told us, like, either the students were too young to remember, or they weren't even born yet.
And
I said, we're still living in the aftermath of that. We went $3 trillion in debt or more.
It's been a war for
still
20 years because of
war
it.
for 20, a generation. When you think about that. So you think about the Tonkin Offensive, right? They told you that the Tonkin Offensive happened in Vietnam, and that was the impetus to bring us to bring support to come into fucking Vietnam, and that's why we're going to go and we're going to do these things. So they attacked this ship or whatever. And then, 30, 40 years later, some general comes out on the news and says, yeah, it never happened. Well, okay. Well, what you're telling me is that the ripple effect of this lie that led from people that lay dead in those fucking rice paddies, Vietnamese and Americans alike, the people that could never assimilate back to society, the people that came home and fucking brutalized and tortured their family and their kids because they were fucking tragically broken. Their kids had kids and they brutalized. So for generations, this lie had a ripple effect through a fucking generations of Americans' minds. And then you tell me it didn't happen. And what? No big deal? Just not a big deal? You're telling me that this significant thing that happened. You know, I talked to a guy, he was a veteran. He was in Pearl Harbor. He was a friend of my grandmother's. He lied to get into the Army or whatever branch of service he was in. He was in Pearl Harbor when Pearl Harbor was attacked.
Oh, no shit.
He was 17 years old. He said they took all their weapons. They had nothing. He said these planes came in and cut them down. Their weapons were locked up. This guy was walking me through this. He was in his 80s or something when I talked to him. And he was like how I am with 9/11. I know every footstep where I was when I hear the timeline. You know, it's like these things, man, that have taken place and have a ripple effect through time on generations of people.
For sure.
If we don't really pay attention to what happened at 9/11 and really like get into it, you know, I'm not a fan of Jon Stewart. You know, I feel like he fell off pretty hard, but I remember back when I don't know if it was when the Warren Commission was happening or something like that, but they were, he's arguing for victims' rights for 9/11. You know, it's like, we got this fucking comedian arguing for victims' rights of this thing that happened. And then you knowingly expose the entire tri-state area to fucking chemical and all these other things. And you fucking lied about all this shit. You lied about the air sampling, because I know guys that worked on the pile doing air sampling. You lied about all this shit. And all these people died, and all these people are sick, and their families are left without, you know, their fathers, or they're this or they're that. And it's just like, it isn't until a couple of years ago that you're hearing they're implicating Saudi Arabia when the petrodollar's in fear of collapsing. And, oh, yeah, well, there's these Saudi guys that brought in these guys down in San Diego. It's like 15 of them were Saudi Arabians. What the fuck are we talking about here? You're talking 20 years later now. So, you know, that day and the things that have come rippled out from generation to generation, you know, they matter, and it's important, you know, and people got to get away from their feelings. You can not like information, but man, you got to take the information and really do your due diligence to sort through it, so that you aren't the one there pushing for something that is like this toxic empathy that would, you know, lead you down to the path of slaughter. Because if you're telling me I got to pick my life or theirs, I pick my life.
All day.
All day, every day.
All day.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry you live in a shithole. I'm sorry your country is fucked, but our country isn't much better. And if we don't protect it, and we don't, you know, the idea that there's an American, like he sees a flag and it's like, I think that guy must be a racist, or fuck America. Or, bro, go live out, go other places. Go. No problem.
Go.
You know, and I really hope that people do start waking up to it more so. And I do think there is. I think social media does have a place for that, you know?
Absolutely. It's I'm glad to see it happen. I've had a young guy on recently, and, you know, he's a younger Marine, and he's gone to Palestine, gone to Israel.
I was listening. Is that what's his name? Bosch is his last flight. Yeah.
So it's good to see that generation and younger questioning and waking up, and okay, we could search this now. Okay, I have this influencer that I trust, that I know isn't just regurgitating Israel's bullshit. It's like, okay, cool. Then so at least we have this movement, and it's not going to be in our lifetime where we see this regime uprise and we overthrow the two-party system, like, which needs to go, because obviously it's not working. So
you have more faith than me, man. And I would say that because our poor people drive Cadillacs and have color TVs. Other places, poor people don't have clean drinking water.
I don't know, man. I've been to some pretty poor places in this country.
I have too.
So, I mean, they're there, but I get what you're saying, right? Like, are we third world poor? No, but who knows what the direction it's going with how much. But if you thought about if they just, that's a whole other, that's a whole other, we're 3 hours in. I don't know if I want to get into that political, but I see what you're saying 100%, but I like to at least see that there's hope and that there is some momentum. I don't want to say there's change, right? There ain't shit fucking change, because I'm still getting raped on everything that I make, buy, save, sell, trade, whatever it is. We're paying on it, right? But at least that I feel that there is a movement right now with a lot of people waking up to the knowledge and the information that is able to be searched on. Because you look at our parents, I mean, fuck, bro, they still think we landed on the moon. No offense if you think we landed on the moon, but they still think we landed on the moon, and then all this other crazy shit and like what's going on. It's like now you can just look up all the information, be like, oh, clearly this didn't happen, right? So that's why I'm saying in our generation, there's so many people that are so brainwashed and that are so convinced that the government's going to help them, and we got to trust these people, and politicians have our best rights and interests, and they're looking out for us. Like, there's a shift.
When?
Exactly. Like, that's what I asked people. When the fuck has a politician ever looked out for you?
Well, you know, one of the things that I think
Kennedy,
about too, it's like, how many more great examples of horrific behavior do you need to see before you finally say, wait a minute? Mm-hmm. You know, it's really sad. It's really wild that we've come to a place where we're not going to know what's real.
Yeah.
We've come to a place where it's okay to fucking turn your neighbor in if he had a party because, you know, the sniffles are going around, you know, or any of this other nonsense. And, you know, when you think of like the American spirit and the idea of like how, you know, yeah, was there some death and shit that happened? Yeah. 'Cause that's what conquering is. Absolutely. You know, but there's no denying the reality that this country has made the world a better place. Sure. No denying it. Sure. I know Americans all over the place. They're the nicest people. They're the kindest people. They'll give you the shirt off your back. You're fucking down and out and whatever. They're there for you. Whatever. We even want to help other people that don't even have our best interests at heart just because, you know, look, but at some point you have to fucking take ownership of reality. For sure. And say like, look, you can't have my shit. You have to work for it. You have to try. Yep. But that also means that we have to work to hold on to it and to educate other people. And, you know, that's why, you know, thank you for having me on to talk about this stuff, because that day, I think was such a pivotal moment in history that has slipped under the radar for too many people. They don't understand. They don't know what the world was like before that. No. They don't know what privacy is anymore. These things aren't a thing anymore. Yep. Right?
What traveling was like before.
Right. And so, you know, the idea that teachers are being told not to teach this and not to investigate this and not to drill down into the companies that were involved and the fucking all these players that, you know, they want you to believe all these coincidences happen. It's like you live in the world every day. I mean, we live 10 minutes away from each other. A coincidence is me running into you at fucking Walmart or something. Oh, bam. Hey, wow. What a coincidence you're here. I'm never at Walmart, you know, not 35 people lining up, getting this, coordinating this. No one got the calls. I mean, when Pearl Harbor happened 6 months before that, they were intercepting that some shit was going down. You're telling me in the day and age of fucking communication, the great communication, emails and all this shit, no one knew, like nothing's going on. They had
these dudes that can't even read and they fail a Cessna test. You mean to tell me they took over a Boeing jet and flew it into
let me tell you, some fucking skinny Arab with a fucking box cutter and all Americans, no one's like you said.
That's what I'm saying earlier.
Slice me, motherfucker, but you're gonna be shoved through a fucking window. Mm-hmm. I'm flushing you out the toilet.
That's the stuff that doesn't make sense.
So there's just something. Look, I know guys.
You've looked into the elevator contract, right?
Yeah. There's
like the dude that they took out the act of terrorist insurance policy like a month prior or whatever it was, and like there's so many things.
Too much shiesty shit.
There's way too much. So
it's like when you walked around New York City after 9/11 happened. You look in each other's eyes, man, and you just seen it in each other's face. Sure. And there was a camaraderie there. There was a like, I understand, we're all hurting right now. I worked in this whiskey bar down in Lower East Side on Essex between Rivington and Delancey, and it was a whiskey bar, but we get punk rockers and we get all kinds of people. We had a DJ spun all kinds of great stuff, and And there was this big, like, punk skinhead dude that would come in there. Jacked motherfucker. Big dude. And he was a Teamster. Drove a truck. He worked on the pile for several months, hauling shit from Ground Zero to Staten Island or Long Island, wherever they were taking, like, sort out the rubble. They'd load his truck up. He'd drive it there. He'd dump it. He'd come back and get, I hadn't seen him in months. I'm bartending there. I hadn't seen him several months. And he comes in, and this dude is, if he was 260 pre, he was 160.
Oh, no shit.
Frail, broken guy. They said, "What's going on, man? I hadn't seen you in a while." He goes, "Yeah, I just dumped a load today." And a torso came out. Several months after them emptying and trying to clear the site, they were still pulling bodies out of that hole. So the idea that teachers are being told not to teach about this.
Wild.
In this country. You don't want to teach it in Israel. You don't want to teach it in fucking Saudi Arabia. You don't want to, no problem. But here, that's, you want to teach my kid how to be my boy to be a girl or my girl to be a boy, or, everyone's included. But you don't want to teach that? Why?
Like, make that make sense.
Nah, man. There's again, fuzzy math don't math, And so some really dirty, dastardly, sinister shit took place that day.
Very.
And some people in our government knew about it and were privy to it and part of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know who. I'm not saying it was the president or whatever. Who the fuck knows? But somebody, they bypassed CIA security, FBI security, fucking Homeland, all these different security measures, police, fire, all this stuff, and then 35 different fucking coincidences, and look what we got. Like, nah, man.
Not happening.
You got a fucking 6'3", 6'5" Arab dragging around a dialysis machine through the fucking mountains. They can't find him. Get out of here. Like, all of it's nonsensical, man.
Yeah.
And again, I get it. World's a complicated place and all this stuff, but man, America and Americans should really understand that there's been enough terrible examples of horrific behavior that everything isn't what it seems.
Nope.
And if you don't maintain some kind of fucking skepticism, you're telling me I'm not welcome to my skepticism when you're ramming some fucking vaccine down everyone's throat. Like,
question everything.
Man, you got the wrong people here.
Mm-hmm.
Because Americans should not be those people.
And we slowly turned into that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate your conversation.
For sure, man.
This was great.
Thank you.
I want to have you back on, and I want to talk more of your just life, because holy shit. Yeah. You've been through some stuff, so.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate
I'd love to come back,
Yeah, dude, this was a great conversation, and I like I said, I don't even feel that I scratched the surface of who you are and some of the things you've been through. I really appreciate you showing and telling your vulnerability. I mean, I know it's probably not easy, and been a lifetime of living with some of the things that you've gone through.
Yeah.
But honestly, for me, and off air, on air, I could care less either way, but like it always means a lot to me when guys can come on here and open up and just talk. I like showing people that men can be able to just talk about some fucked up shit that's gone on in their life, and it doesn't control them. I mean, it's always going to be a part of your life. It's a chapter, and there's no erasing those, but at least you're able to talk. And I know other people are going to be able to hear this and be able to, and it's wild to me of how many people are able to relate to our guests.
Yeah.
And there's times where I've had people open up and I'm like, fuck, dude, I've never even knew anything that's ever happened. And I'll have so many people reach out like, holy shit, I've been through this. Like, man, this really helped me get through what I'm going through. So I want to thank you for that and being able to just be open about it and have a conversation with somebody you've never even met before. So
for sure, man. Absolutely. Well, it's been great meeting you.
Dude, absolutely. I really appreciate your time, man.
Likewise.
Thank you. That was great.
Cool. Was that? Yeah.